Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out OTheAnthem.com. It's where you can find everything O The Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/OTheAnthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/OTheAnthem is the place for it all.
And of course, you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Cheek.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at O The Anthem on all your social networks. Before we get to that, we have to talk about the ongoing thing that is the 2020 election. Most specifically, the president's reaction to the 2020 election. And this is, I think, the most telling image to come out of this entire election process. And this thing that you see to my side here is a list of Trump tweets. And don't worry, I didn't go to Trump's tweets because I don't want to do that. But I did go to a website where somebody was talking about his tweets and I stole their screenshot. So, but this is what they're doing now. They are just basically saying, he posted a tweet. The first tweet here is, it's actually from a couple weeks ago, but big press conference today in Philadelphia at Four Seasons, total landscaping. Oh, this
was nothing wrong about that tweet. Flag that one, Twitter.
Meme of the week was somebody who had their yard being done by Four Seasons, and they had like the trailer parked out front, and it was like, I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity.
They're taking advantage though. They are putting together T-shirts and stuff like they have a Lawn and Order T-shirt.
Yeah.
Make America Rake Again, I think was one of theirs. Like it's pretty good. They're capital. I always like it when a small business like this can totally capitalize on the situation.
I have not liked. I think we talked about it last year when we went home for Christmas, and a lot of Maryland was like, choose us for your plumbing and choose Trump again in 2020. And I'm like, nope, not using you. But I will take the punny advertisements by the company that got roped into this for no reason, clearly.
Well, it also sounded like the call that was involved in booking it was like, are you guys available for a press conference today? And it's like, yeah, sure, I guess.
Like, I mean, we don't have a conference room. We have the parking lot. We'll take it. It's fine. Is the sign out there? Are we going to be able to see the sign? Yes. Okay, we got it.
Good enough.
George, I just got the weirdest call. The president's coming here? I don't know.
Rudy Giuliani and somebody on the sex offender registry is going to be showing up.
Aren't those the same person?
Hit it,
Manny. Hey. But so what they've done is basically Twitter has censored the president. And I use this as an example just because his first tweet is relatively normal. It's just making a point. And then he follows it up with a bunch of like, the election is fraud and people are voting who shouldn't have voted. And Twitter's just basically like, nope, we're not.
About it like this, like if you say you were going to court for something, right? Like you were wrongly accused for killing your wife, and it was really the one-armed man who did it, right? And you needed to hire a lawyer. and you look around and you can't get any of the top lawyers, so you have to settle for Rudy Giuliani or someone of his ilk, right?
Wait, is he the guy with his hand in his pants in that video?
In the Borat, yes.
No, okay.
So you have to hire a Rudy Giuliani-like lawyer, right? And then you're showing up for court. You're like in your suit. You're ready for the whole thing to start. You're looking around for your lawyer. And then he comes in. He's just like, like, oh, sorry, I'm late. I got pulled over for a DUI, but it's all right. I bribed the cop. And you got to like look at him and you're just like, should you be my legal counsel at this moment? If this is how badly you fuck up on the way to help me, is this something that I want to examine further?
There's a meme thing that I loved when I was practicing law, and it's like, it's still good. It just doesn't, I don't see these on the daily anymore. It was like, you're going to jail if, and it was like pictures of lawyers where like one guy was wearing house shoes to court. And they're like, if your lawyer shows up with these, you going to jail. So you should just cut a deal. And one of them, the lawyer came in and he was wearing a Tommy Bahama shirt. And then he borrowed somebody's jacket to put on over it and pushed his very long hair out of his face with sunglasses. And they're like, if your lawyer looks like this, you're going to jail. So you need to cut a deal.
I can't even. The other thing is that like Trump, in part of the preparing for possibly having to have a legal fight upcoming in this election, looked at Jared and was just like, we have the legal team all squared away, right? And Jared's like, yeah, no problem. No
We
problem.
got it.
We got it. And then he turns around and it's Pam Bondi and Rudy Giuliani. like,
all right, who's still bar approved here? Anybody?
I would imagine
All right.
that when Trump was like, get me the finest set of election lawyers you can find, like you're thinking that he's going to put together like an OJ style dream team or something like that. Like not Giuliani and Pam Bondi.
What are the odds that Jared
'Cause
put together a really great team, and then they went to meet Trump, and Trump's like, I don't know any of these guys. Who are these guys? And like, this is literally the primo election law team in the country. And he's like, nah, we got to get Rudy in here. Is Rudy still in the building? Pam? Is Pam here? Can we add these? And then all the other lawyers were like, nah, fuck this. And they left. And it's just Rudy and Pam now.
I don't get it.
But obviously, the point of this being, Trump is fighting the results of the election on grounds that, as a former attorney, do not make sense to me. As a political scientist, I have the degree. They don't make sense to me. As a scholar, if you will, of politics, they don't make sense to me. Have you heard anything that, other than the automatic recounts, which the states are like, yeah, we got to redo the vote. We got to count them again. And by the way, how upset's Nevada going to be when they finish in 6 weeks and then they got to redo that same vote next day? Poor people.
We'll have it by the next election. Don't worry.
But
by the way,
anything?
the memes last week of making fun of Nevada were chef's kiss, just beautiful. I loved it. I was enjoying every single one of them.
Well, and I think I told you on near election day, my theory is that the state secretary of state there was like, all right, we have a chance to be a kingmaker here. We can make every president come to Nevada. So we need to time this out exactly right. Okay, how far are we? 86. All right, we're right on track. Oh, Pennsylvania's caught it. Well, shit. Never mind. All right, just whenever you're ready, give me those ballots. Because it felt like they were trying to build it up to be like, Arizona's going to call, and he needs 6. He's got to get 6 to get to 270, and guess who's got 6, baby? It's right here.
What's amazing to me about the whole thing is that like it would be the same way if the election ever came down to California. Like if it's like all the states were decided except for California because, I don't know, some Republican from California was running for president. This week on the The Anthem podcast, we really have only one subject today, and it's the insurrection that happened on the Capitol on Wednesday, January 6th. Breached for the first time since 1814. There were nooses, there were Nazi memorabilia, there was Confederate flags inside the halls of the Senate. We're going to get into every single bit of it in terms and specifically the punishment that a lot of these fucking people need to feel and Rob's opposition to that. We'll get into the whole thing. And if we have time at the very end, a little palate cleanser, we'll talk about the Ravens and the NFL playoffs because thank God there's at least something else going on this week on the OD Anthem podcast. Acting Secretary Chad Wolf has resigned. Therefore, he is now just Citizen Chad. This is Corey, and this is the Anthem podcast.
It's a sad day for America.
It's a sad day for Chads.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to episode 353 of the podcast. You may not recognize it because Corey is going to be the revolutionary one this time around. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for listening. Let's get right into it because obviously this is a very important historic week in American history.
Yes.
What started as Congress, a joint session of Congress getting together to formally certify the votes of Joe Biden as the next president of the United States were hit with a terrorist attack against the Capitol by people who were riled up by President Trump, by Rudy Giuliani, by Don Trump Jr., amongst others at the rally that was held in front of the White House, at which Trump said, we're going to march down to the Capitol, at which point we're saying roughly 30,000 people.
Something like 30,000, yeah.
What? Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah. Marched down to the Capitol. Many of them went inside. We've all seen the videos. I find the more videos I watch, the more I grow upset about this because tell me, we didn't really talk about it a lot on the day. When you were watching it live, what were you going through? Because I thought that it looked like they were unprepared, but it seemed like they had some sort of plan. And then as the week has gone on, I feel like there's been less of a plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there probably were people there who did have a plan, and it used a motivated group with a motivated group willing to take direction, and then just pointed them. It's the bazooka. It's like once you get it armed, you just have to have the right person to point it in the correct direction. And there were certainly people there. I mean, I think the reveal since then has been that there were parlor groups, there are Facebook groups that were saying we're going to storm the Capitol. And as soon as they got the entire band of merry men from the White House or just north of the White House down to the Capitol, it's like, all right, we got our guy Trump to arm the bazooka. And not only that, but he pointed it in the right direction for us. Now we just got to hit the trigger. And somebody hit the trigger and it went off. I mean, the day of, I'll be honest, there was a lot of jealousy. There was a lot of jealousy on my part because who would have thought it was the conservatives, the crazy right-wing extremists who got to storm the halls of Congress? Listen, I wrote a book a while ago that's the movement Insurgency, where I outline a group of leftist insurgents. The opening of the book is an encampment in Arlington National Cemetery. We're overlooking the banks of the Potomac River and into D.C. the morning before they invade the nation's capital. And much like the closing moments of World War II, there is this climactic scene of, running across the bridge. And for those of you who've been in D.C. before, there's a roadway that comes from Arlington. It kind of separates and goes around the Lincoln Memorial and then heads down the Capitol towards the White House and the Capitol building. And there's a scene where they're just I imagine a horde of men just running across the bridge, and there's fire being exchanged, and a disorganized retreat back towards the Capitol building, and you are standing there in the mall, taking cover while the American flag gets pulled down from the Capitol building, and your flag goes over the Capitol building, and that's what happened at the Reichstag. That was the sign that World War II was over. That the forces of the USSR took down the Nazi flag from the Reichstag and put up the Soviet Union flag, and they were like, okay, so war over. And then something like 4 months later, the war actually ended when they finally got everybody to give up.
It was the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end, yeah. But everybody cheered, and then the story goes that everyone cheered, and some sergeant stood up and like waved his cap, at which point a Nazi sniper shot him in the head, and then everybody was like, okay, so not done yet. Let's keep fighting.
Still work to be done.
So I mean, if I am honest, there was a lot of feelings of like, I've been told by certain people, maybe the other person on this podcast with me, that like, listen, there's not enough people out there to try and overthrow the government, and I was watching a group of people overthrow the government. So
I mean, that was the numbers needed. I think that there were a lot of, we see images of the people who are inside like the halls of the Capitol and stuff like that. And for the most part, these people are younger and in there, but it doesn't seem indicative of the crowd.
What are you trying to say about me? What are you trying to say? Younger than what? Younger than
No, I'm just saying, like, you know, our gentleman with the horns and stuff like that. Like he doesn't look like he's, you know, a 70-year-old senile old man.
The Brad Pitt from Fight Club looking fellow.
I wouldn't give him that. He's not quite anything like Brad Pitt. So
let's just say that on one end of the spectrum you have me currently, and on the other end of the spectrum,
I mean, he could be the Brad Pitt of the right.
Club.
I mean, like, who's his real competition? Matt Gaetz or something like that? I mean, like, there's not a lot of lookers in the.
I'm saying I would not walk around.
It's not like Lindsey Graham's gonna win $50 in a beauty pageant anytime soon.
I would not walk around with my shirt off ever. And this dude never see with a shirt on.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's that.
Except for a picture of him in a suit with Rudy Giuliani. So, I mean, there's that. So, I was I was angry when I watched it. More than anything, I like felt ill. I don't know if you can understand, or if you felt the same sort of thing, but like, you know, like when somebody close to you dies or something like that, and like you hurt, and you like feel like your stomach's not right, and like, you know, like it really, I felt that same sort of thing, that same sort of pang in my stomach, like I was dealing with, the realization that it's not going to be the same anymore. You know, like
I think you hold the halls of Congress in higher esteem than I do. If there was an uncle who had beaten me my entire life, and then he dies, and you're like, I mean, I'm sad that he's dead, but you know,
I mean, you know, we're at some point, you know, some months from now, we'll be in the middle of the Biden administration. There won't be as many dramatic events that happen on a day-to-day basis, and we can have arguments as to whether or not Nancy Pelosi blew this thing or another, which she most certainly will, because she can't stay out of her own way for long enough to do so. But you know, it really, I don't know. I thought about my granddad a lot that day. Me and you have talked about him a lot. He was a serviceman. He went into work for various federal agencies after he retired from the service. He was born on the 4th of July, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but like,
is he Tom Cruise?
No, but I'm saying, like, you know, it's one of those things. Like he always was a very patriotic guy, and he was very it was important to him, and the American experiment was important to him, and he wanted to see America, no matter what, be the best that it could be, even through the worst of it. And I don't know. I guess I just think over and over again about how we failed him and people like him who had literally sacrificed something for this country. And we're getting, you know, like to me, the people, the inhabitants of Congress, the Senate, all these people, like, there's reasons that you can be angry with them or feel like they're not doing the job that you sent them there to do, or that they're not, like looking out for the people of their constituencies or something like that. But at a certain point, things have to stand for the image of the country. And almost unlike, just the White House is the only other one other than the Capitol, which I think you can rate as like, this is more of an image of America rather than it is just a building in which things happen. It's not if I burn down a Burlington coat factory and I burn down a church, those two things are not the same. Like, one of them has a lot more. Well, Steve, has a lot more.
To you,
no, but
they're not the same.
No, but I'm saying
to me, I couldn't give a fuck. It's just two buildings.
Right, but I'm saying to most people, they would see that happening and they would say that's awful.
I mean, I would burn down a Burlington coat factory just because, commerce and capitalism. But a church is burning or a school is burning. Which one is a bigger tragedy?
I mean, they're both tragedies, but I'm saying
school, because the church is wasted property and they're not paying taxes on it.
All right. I mean, again, but this is a 6 month from now conversation when we're talking about the ins and outs of Washington pork. When we're talking about,
you say that, but alternatively, you and I could be broadcasting pirate radio from the front of the Civil War that is broken out in America. Like that.
I'm not.
Both of those are alternatively possible.
That's,
at this point.
You know what, and I'm not entirely putting that outside of the realm of possibility either. And we've been joking about the idea of a Civil War coming about in this country for a while. And I mean, we've been joking about the idea of it.
Oh yeah,
but not. Yeah. I think the reason why we bring it up at all is because we both know how perilously close this whole thing has gotten. So, couple things. It's the first time that the Capitol has been breached since 1814 when the British did it.
Yeah. So I mean, and here's the thing. Everyone, I did a Rob Explains about D.C. and the Capitol and the whole thing in general, and everyone thinks like, oh well, 1776. First of all, this country wasn't this country in 1776. It was 1776.
Washington wasn't Washington in 1776.
Yeah, and we declared independence, and then we fought an 8-year war of independence. So now we're in 1781 when there was a first. Let's start talking about an election because it looks like we might win this thing. 1783, we hold our first election, and then George Washington is president for 8 years. But at the end of his term, he says, or in the end of his first term, he says, we need to have a place that is the seat of government. Everybody has that place.
Yeah.
And unlike all of these European monarchs, we can say we are going to build a city that is the people's city. It's the center of democracy.
Yeah, because the government was in New York. It was in Philadelphia. Wasn't it in Annapolis for a year?
Wherever the president was the seat of government, and he didn't want that. That's a king. A king takes the court with him. That's not what America is. America is the seat of government where everyone must come to the seat. So they designed a city. Lafayette designed a city, and it's the most ridiculous city design ever. With
they weren't planning for people to actually live there when they designed it. It was not intended that people would actually live there.
Not cars, not designed for cars at all. Honestly, it's not that bad of a place to live if you're on horses because you don't have to worry about moving at 40 miles an hour.
No, for sure, yeah. If you don't have to get the horse on 295, you're good.
Not designed for highways either. That's also true.
You don't have to take the horse to the Washington professional football team in Landover. You're good.
So in 1798, towards the end of his administration, he lays the cornerstone for the White House. And John Adams, who followed him, laid the cornerstone for the Capitol building in 1801. And but basically, if you were in D.C. at that time, you couldn't see the Capitol building from the White House because it was forest in the way, in between the two of them. And 10 years later, the British invaded, and they said, oh, convenient for us. The seat of government isn't where the president is. It's this place.
Yes, it's
Let's
the
just
city.
Go invade this place. And they burned the White House. They burned the Capitol.
Yeah.
Unlike the White House, though, the Capitol had been made of marble, which it still is, as you can see. So you burn it, but
it just sort of burns inside.
Yeah.
Like you hollow it out.
And and not even that, because a lot of the rooms are marble, too. Like the rotunda is marble inside and out. So it's like, oh, you burn the tapestry. That sucks.
Yeah.
We'll get a new tapestry. But it was left mainly fine, essentially. The Capitol building. The White House was torched, and we had to rebuild it. But the Capitol was left mainly fine. Then, nothing. 1866, the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia got within 8 miles of D.C., and essentially every able-bodied person in the District of Columbia and Maryland said, here but no further.
Yeah.
And went out, and there were volunteer militias that went out and met them and said, you're not going to get to D.C. Now, the government actually had moved to Philadelphia just in case during that period. But and that was one of the reasons why Robert E. Lee then retreated back across the Potomac and turned north and went into Virginia, or into Pennsylvania. And Gettysburg would happen later on after that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, so even the Confederacy, whose seat of government was Richmond, did not invade D.C. and take the Capitol building.
No.
But
There, to the best of my knowledge, there was never a Confederate flag in the Senate until...
And that's what I was going to say. That
Yeah.
there has never been a Confederate flag in the Senate.
And I mean more
Until
specifically the Confederate battle flag, because that's really what the Confederacy is like.
Oh, and I was going to say,
Yeah.
to be clear for anyone who is confused about that, I'm seeing a lot of heritage, not hate, and that flag that you have is not the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
There was a unit of the Navy that had a white flag with a corner of it being the stars and bars. And then turns out that from afar, that looks like
A surrender flag? Yeah.
So what they did is they broke it into 4 quarters, where 2 quarters were white, 1 quarter was the battle flag, that crossed battle flag,
Yeah.
and the other quarter was something with a boat on it.
I mean, to be fair, I see the battle flag nowadays, and I think about surrender and defeat as well. So
Well, yeah, and so now I see it, and that's what I said. I see it as a surrender flag because eventually, by the way, even if it was the flag of the country, which it's not a country anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. They lost, so
They
they lost the right to be their own country.
And yet, someone felt the need to take that flag into the Capitol building where it had never been before. And by the way, there's a really now famous picture of the guy standing there with the Confederate flag in front of a picture of a guy who was beaten in the halls of Congress by a slave supporter, because he said that he would stand and give his own life against slavery. So the guy beat him with a cane so harshly that he had to give up his Senate seat because he couldn't return to the Senate. Which is, I don't know, I feel like if I could go back and tell that guy, like, it was 1824, I think,
Yeah.
and just be like, so by the way, war happens because of slavery. He's going to be like, of course.
Yeah.
These idiots are never going to give this up.
Right, clearly.
But we're going to beat them. And he's like, yes, we did beat them, in fact. But then 100 years after that, 150 years or so years after that, someone's going to parade in front of your picture with the Confederate flag of that country that supported slavery. Beyond everything else, I don't know that he would comprehend. Like,
Yeah.
So it's
How did we get to this point?
so they leave, and then we beat them, and they come back. And then 150 years passes. We've settled the slavery question. We've settled all of that stuff. And now they're using that flag for something? Yes. Yeah.
Hate.
And what else? What if you are that guy? What can you possibly say? Okay, so they want slavery? That has to be what it is, right?
Not quite slavery. They just don't want the...
Well, I mean, the truth is.
Well, I mean, I'm sure if one of these people could, they would welcome the opportunity. But
Yeah. And the reality is, and this is the argument I've made on too many...
if it was made legal, why wouldn't you do it? You know?
I've waded back into Facebook, back on social media. I regret it instantly. But I've already made this argument too many times just to say that, like the Confederate battle flag wasn't even a part of the culture until the second KKK in the 1890s.
Yeah.
And they said, we need an image that when black people see it, they know and they're afraid. And that is a very distinctive image. It's a cross on a red background. And you're like, people are going to recognize that when they see it. So what you're doing is not even just Confederacy. It's not the Confederacy. It's the KKK from the 1890s. And in most telling fashion, I had someone be like, it's still history. KKK history, but now you've explained exactly what your position is. So good to know. But yeah, so the to get back to the point, it hasn't been taken since 1814, and essentially the plan throughout the Cold War was we don't have to worry about anyone taking the Capitol because the only way they ever would is by nuking the entire city
Yeah.
of DC. And then there's no capital to worry about. Marble's strong, but it ain't that strong. So we don't ever have to worry about it being taken. And then a group of nonsensical idiots decided to storm the gates and took it on their own, which in very classical fashion was aided by a group of guards who were just like, do you want me to show you where the bathroom is?
Yeah,
Whose office are you looking for?
we'll get into that part a little bit later.
But the one thing about the whole setup there, Corey, I want to complain about.
Yeah,
If you're going to steal somebody's idea, at
Yeah.
least give them credit.
right.
They went out and they built gallows on the mall. They hung a noose. And I've searched every
We're
picture.
saying hang Mike Pence out, like chanting it outside of the
saying that they want to do, and the Mike Pence thing, that's their thing.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, if you're gonna, I searched every picture that I could find, and not one place did I see the Robert Cheek Memorial Gallows, anything of reference to me. I've been saying for 4 years now to go build gallows, the guillotine, something out on the National Mall.
somebody on the far right is taking there's a far right Robert N. Cheek who's taking all your credit.
Well,
I think his name is Charlie Kirk.
Oh, is that what it is? And I would say that he's taking my ideas, but as he's older than me, perhaps it's just in the ether.
Is he?
I would have to say so.
I don't know. I mean, he's got kind of that Tucker Carlson of like, how old is this 12-year-old boy kind of thing going on, but
and the hate ages you, so it's hard to say. I'm pretty sure he's in his like early mid 40s, and although I am now a year older at 37, I'm not yet in my early 40s.
I can't believe I'm Googling this asshole's name. It's fine.
Way to wreck your Google statistics here, but
27.
Are you kidding me?
No, 27. Well, I said 12 before, so I mean,
I know.
clearly-
I honestly just thought he had that Tucker Carlson, like he's in his 40s, but
he's like the new Coke. He's like the new Tucker Carlson.
yeah. I just
Anywho,
thought he was older. Oh,
yeah, we
well. So the point is, he did take my idea. Then he asshole. Give me some credit. That's all I ask.
You can't copyright an idea, sadly enough. That's something that we've all learned in this writing game.
All right, you know what? That's the straw that breaks the camel's back. We're just gonna storm the Capitol. I'm gonna change this.
Change the laws. I'm angry and I need restitution.
Which, by the way, arguably makes more sense than the reason that they did storm the Capitol.
Well, I mean, like, there's potentially some way you could get change made.
Yes. Me storming the Capitol and being like, here's a specific law that is unjust and I want to change it, rather than the will of 80 million people.
I mean, to be fair, though, you know, this is a point I bring up from time to time. You could just call the congressman and say, hey, I have a problem with this law. Or maybe even, I'm going to be in D.C. Could I meet with somebody in your office about this thing? And then you sit down with the, yours is Adam Schiff, right? Because you're in Hollywood.
Well, yes, technically, I'm a registered voter of the state of Maryland, so mine is Andy Harris.
You got problems.
Well, I was going to say, and either way, Adam Schiff or Andy Harris, although I am wealthy and white, I still haven't donated enough to either of them to get a meeting. So, But theoretically, yes, you're right. You could go see a congressman and have redress of grievances.
Yeah.
Not
the legal way we do these things.
I don't follow that.
Okay. Beyond all that, there was a lot of talk from the right about how this might be Antifa. Question for you, Rob. Just general idea here. Ready?
Yeah.
I would like to hire you to be a protester for me, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've done this many times before.
You have experience. I saw your resume. It's on there.
Now, is this a Soros affair? Because I understand the rules and the lingo and the thing of the Soros affair.
Yeah, but there's a couple things in this contract I'm going to have to go over with you real quick.
Sure, yeah. Go ahead.
So we don't want you to be instantly recognized as Antifa.
Okay.
So, how do you feel about wearing a 6 million wasn't enough t-shirt? I mean, is that doable? I mean, can we negotiate here, or is that a deal breaker for you? Because if it's too much, because if it's too much, we have some other options. Would you like other options?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. That's probably a bit much. Go ahead.
All right. So, maybe we have something in the "Jews won't replace us" line that would do it for you. Is that? Is it still a little too touchy though?
Yeah.
Okay. maybe we can do something. And I mean, like, is Confederacy work for you? Would you
I mean,
do a Stars
I
and
saw
Bars?
something
or?
on your website. I did enjoy the Counselor Camp Auschwitz shirt. Now,
Oh,
that makes the reference without being so on the nose.
Right. I mean, it's a little bit, it's, like, people don't necessarily know what that means when they see it.
And
so.
if you see them from the back, all it says, if I'm right, freedom through labor is just what it's on the back. So if I turn my back on them,
I didn't see the back. I don't know what it says. So
okay. All right, yeah.
I mean, you could wear. We have branded T-shirts that somebody's selling that says "MAGA Civil War January 6th." Would that work for you? Or
is that the one that's in the Marvel?
Yeah, it looks like Marvel. Only it says MAGA instead of Marvel.
I'm down. I am now that one. I'm 100%.
Okay,
fine
all right.
with. Yes.
So we'll get you that. And now you are going to need to commit many federal crimes as part of this protesting.
That's
are you
a regular part of?
I mean, how much?
How
How much are we talking about for 10 years in federal prison at the very least?
Well, I mean, when Soros paid me to burn a police station in Minneapolis, it was $1,500 a day. Mm-hmm. But that was
does that include time that you spent in jail?
No, that's just
okay.
the
That's
day
just
on
for
the
the act.
Yes.
That's just the day.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But that was summertime, and I don't like the cold, so I'm gonna have a $500 per day.
Like a per diem.
Per diem, just for the cold. Also, I will take that MAGA Civil War in a long sleeve rather than a short sleeve.
Okay, I'll see if they have that available.
Yes,
I don't. For anybody who doesn't know, that was a joke. This is a fucking joke.
Yeah,
What, there is
all
no
those
amount of
t-shirts were available.
Yeah, there is no amount of money. Number one, there's no amount of money you could get me to wear like a Camp Auschwitz T-shirt.
Yeah,
unless
Counselor Camp Auschwitz.
Yeah.
You're saying you identify with the Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, I would if I was hired to be in a movie that I played one of these people.
Yeah,
there's the time I would wear the Camp Auschwitz T-shirt.
And here's the thing:
if I was in a play where we were doing a reading of Huck Finn, then yes, you would hear me say words that I would not say under normal circumstances because we all understand I'm playing a character here.
Well,
like,
I'll say, friend of the show, Roberto, probably would agree with you on the Huck Finn one because it's part of it's in the literature. I'm just saying the line. I am not sure he does the Counselor Camp Auschwitz shirt. Because that image exists forever on the internet.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know he has not done things before when he saw them and was like, I don't know if I want that picture to be on the internet forever.
Yeah.
Because that can be, by the way,
even good ones.
Side note, the unemployment story where they CNN just grabbed a picture from somebody's post about being unemployed. And now it's the #1 result for unemployment. It's somebody's private picture on the internet. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be the Google result for Camp Auschwitz, and it's your character. And you're like,
right.
Let me explain why I'm wearing that T-shirt. I was an actor.
You have to have a very specific conversation about how the metadata is going to be labeled on these types of things, because when it comes up in search results, you want to see, behind the scenes from the film of Insurrection.
When you're trying to get a real job, 20 years later, you don't want the Camp Auschwitz shirt to come up first.
By the way, great on all the people who've been fired here too. I appreciate that. That one of the guys who made it into the Senate, who was standing right next to the shaman with his horns and all.
Let's not actually call him a shaman. That's disrespectful to actual shaman.
I understand. I'm just trying to identify him for the folks. I think we all know he's not a real shaman.
The gentleman with the buffalo horns on his head.
Exactly.
The appropriating white man.
There was a gentleman to his left, a couple people over in one of these pictures, who was wearing his work badge.
Oh, yeah.
That guy worked for a company in Maryland.
By the way,
and was fired the next day. So
not only are you not wearing masks to protect yourself from the pandemic, but you don't use this as the opportunity to wear a mask to hide your face.
Point of order. Number one. A lot of people are going to get fucking sick from that thing. I can see it already. There's already members of Congress who have tested positive since then who were trapped with all the other congressmen inside of a confined, safe location without masks.
Those people who refused to put on, I'm not putting on your mask.
Yeah.
And then they got other people sick. So good job.
Right. So a lot of people in Congress are probably going to get sick. A lot of people who did this rally or, stormed the Capitol are going to get sick because there was not a lot of masks amongst them. I would have been more if I was of the mind to storm the Capitol. Mm-hmm. I think I would have taken it more like the zip tie guy. because he had his complete face covered.
It's an excuse.
You know, if he was a little bit smarter about not posting on Facebook pictures of him and his mom going like, "Hey, great insurrection today," like we would have been, he would have probably
still wearing the clothes just with his face on.
Just his face uncovered.
Dumbass. Oh my god.
I mean, it was. Yeah, a couple things.
But by the my
number
point
one,
was,
we all have the perfect opportunity if we were to do something illegal to be wearing masks at this point, which is something that, like, you know, if you told a bank robber in the 80s, like, hey, there's going to be a time where you're allowed to wear the mask into the bank and nobody's going to think a thing until you get up to the register and you say, "There's a holdup." Like, it hasn't happened, thankfully enough.
You wait in line and you pass them a note and you just don't react.
Yeah.
They don't react. You don't react. They put the money in the bag and you walk out.
Yeah.
Nobody will know. But not even just to not wear a mask for the pandemic, but to cover your identity. But then,
like, the motherfucker sitting behind Pelosi's desk with his just face, like how long is it going to take for someone to say, "Hey, that's my neighbor Bill"? Like,
or in some cases, the ex-wife to be like, "Oh, by the way, just so you know, you haven't been able to identify him yet. Let me let you know who he is. Here's his home address. Here's his phone number. Here's where you can find him at work.
Here's also how much child support he owes me."
Exactly. But the guy who wears his work badge,
yeah,
that is a whole. And I
also,
was trying to think of a justification. Why would he wear his work badge?
Well, he came from right from work.
Is that really the
what
reason?
What other explanation do you need? You came right from work. You were going to overthrow the government. You didn't have time to stop home and change. You were wearing
really the reason why
you were wearing your Camp Auschwitz shirt to work. People didn't seem to mind.
I mean, depending on the workplace, I guess.
I mean, good enough to wear a badge around his neck. So, like,
I had imagined that, like, he worked at a company that had a thing in DC, and in his mind, he was thinking, if I have to run, I can get into a building along the way. But if it's really just I was getting,
it was
off
like
work,
a marketing company or something like that. So I don't think it was. I don't think it was like he had, you know, nuclear launch codes or anything like that. It's not like he was tied into DC somehow.
People are so dumb.
Well, another one, just on top of the people are so dumb. Yeah. Why in the fuck are you guys recording yourself violating the law?
But no, that's not a problem.
No,
if you're wearing masks, it happens all the time on the left. Now, we edit the videos first. We don't live stream for the most part.
Yeah, and also, you'll see a lot of people who are hiding behind VPNs or doing things that will scatter their location or keep you from being able to get read by a stingray or something like that. Like,
I should say, me, who is breaking the law, doesn't record also.
Yeah.
You have press written across your helmet.
Right.
You record, and I do bad thing, and then we go back to our apartment and break down the footage later. So,
no, but I mean, like, you know, let's just say this wasn't. While it was definitely planned ahead of time, not planned particularly well because that was a shit show. That was a shit show of criminality.
Well,
and I've never.
Everything about the Trump administration, though, has been the last 4 years has been that. It's been like, this is a shit show because you did absolutely nothing to get ready for.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like, you know, like sometimes I would say to myself, like, this is the worst possible version of this, like. You know, like, this is a startling new low of criminality. And, like, every couple months we'd talk about some new Trump thing, and we'd be like, how fucking stupid do these people have to be? And then...
How about on a phone call
even the insurrection was as stupid as humanly possible.
You think to yourself, on a phone call with 12 people, he's openly saying, just be fraudulent and find votes. It
find
can't
the
get
votes.
Worse.
Find 11,000 votes.
And then the insurrection that comes when that doesn't work is actually dumber than the phone call with 12 people where you're telling him to commit fraud. So, you know... Now, I do the events. We kind of skipped over a little bit. I think I do want to go over just kind of like what happened. So, in the morning there was a scheduled rally,
right?
And that rally was supposed to start, I think, at 10, and it kind of just got rolling a little bit. At 1. The vote began on the certification of the electoral results from all the states.
Yeah.
And at 1, Trump was supposed to speak to the rally. That was kind of the whole thing. It's like, we're going to do this. So it also was supposed to align because Arizona is the third state, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, that is going to be certified. And that was going to be the first one that was objected to. So essentially, Trump goes on stage just as Arizona is objected to.
By the way, I realized watching the certification of the votes that I completely forget how many states there are and where they line up, because it was like, they were just like, New York. We're gonna call the tally for New York, and I'm just like, all right, Rachel, stay tuned. In 3 states, we're gonna get Pennsylvania, and then all of a sudden, I'm just like New Jersey, New Hampshire, and I'm just like, wait a minute, I might have missed Oregon. I might have miscalculated this.
There's a lot of states.
Nevada. I'm like,
But yeah, so kind of, let's split it along the way. The rally is a shit show, as you might imagine. Trump is saying inflammatory things like, we're going to go to Congress and we are going to stop this count. We're going to stop this election right now.
Yeah.
Donald Trump Jr. gets up and says things like,
Junior went first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. You need to have courage. You need to be brave right now.
You need to fight. Yeah.
Giuliani is saying
trial by combat.
Trial by combat. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes. Right before Trump goes on. Then Trump gets up and does his thing about like, let's go do it right now. Let's go do it. I'm going to be with you.
Yeah.
We are going to the Capitol, before immediately leaving and going back to the bunker where he tweets from.
Right.
Now, while that's
where
happening,
he used to tweet from.
Well, yes. We'll get to that in the fallout part.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Congress, they do Alabama, Alaska, and then I'm pretty sure Arizona's after that. Again, now you have me questioning
Arkansas.
No, I before K.
Yeah.
Yes. See?
Yeah. There we go.
So they get to Arizona. Somebody objects. They register the objection. Is there the senator? I think is the one who objected. Are there any House members who object?
No, it's a House member and then a senator needs to sign it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to have one from each body. Okay, and then they split it up for 2 hours of discussion.
Yeah.
Up to 2 hours of discussion. Now, if I remember correctly,
it was during the discussion time that
yes, but
the actual raid happened.
But they did come back into the joint session. No, they were still in their separate sessions when they kind of had to take flight.
Yeah.
So they were still in. What happens after that is they go to separate session. They have up to 2 hours to discuss it. Then they take a vote. They come back to joint session and then move on to the next state. They were going to appeal up to, or not appeal. Try to stop 6 states. They had a list of 6.
Yeah.
Which means 12 hours were going to be spent on nonsense.
Right.
Except for while they were in the joint session, this group arrives at the White House or arrives at the Capitol. It's not a long walk. The president does it often on Inauguration Day, the opposite way from the Capitol to the White House.
It's like 3 or 4 blocks, right?
It's a little further than that. I would say probably about.
It's the long blocks though. DC has short block, long blocks. Yeah.
And I was gonna say, don't think 4 blocks because it's not even city blocks. It's real long It's the
another
blocks.
thing people will not know if they've never been to DC or a lot of East Coast cities is short blocks and long blocks. Yeah. Like if you're going across like east to west, the blocks might be very short. Mm-hmm. And you might tell somebody like, oh, go 20 blocks, but it only takes 5 minutes to get there.
Right.
Whereas you might tell someone like, oh, go 5 blocks south here, and it's like a 30-minute trip. Because it's
equal to the 20 that you go across. And Pennsylvania Avenue is the angular street because D.C. is not a grid. It's angles and north and south.
Yeah. It flows in.
Yeah. It's actually the longest of those blocks. So it may be 3 or 4, but it's really a long walk.
Right.
But they get there, and then they start a rally there at the mall right in front of the Capitol. There are blockades set up, which immediately there's an exchange across the barricades. And at some point, about halfway through that discussion time, is when the first shaking of the barricades and the removal of the barricades and the crowd begins to move from the grassy part of the mall into the mall or the Capitol complex, the stairs, the external area. A window's broken at some point towards the end of the discussion session. The people enter the building itself into the rotunda. Yeah. The Hall of Sculptures. And then
just seeing people casually walk through too was like, as soon as they breached, you know?
Okay. Hi. Yeah.
Like it's here. Like it's here. Like
we're on a tour. But so when that happened, and apparently at the same time, people were going into the House office building as well. And maybe people don't know this, but there are actually tunnels that connect all of those buildings underground. Yeah. So when the first House building was penetrated, they basically shut down the tunnel that connected that to the rest of the complex. And then when the Senate building was, when the Capitol itself was
fully occupied,
then they shut down all of them because they didn't want people to get in and then be able to go everywhere else.
Yeah.
So, people were basically given the shelter in place order.
I would like to just real quick. One person who definitely did their job was Eugene Goodman, who is a cop for the Capitol Police. Who you see, he's a black cop, and he's all by himself, and
In a
the
doorway?
group starts coming towards him. And he starts backing up the stairs, and the group is coming towards him again. He goes around the corner. He goes to the very top of the flight of stairs, and he looks quickly to his left as they're going around. This is the direction where the Capitol, where the floor is, the Capitol. And if they go there, then there are congressmen right now who are sitting ducks waiting for this group of insurrectionists.
Yeah.
He makes a move back in the other direction, like he's trying to protect the opposite way, and they follow him that way.
Yeah.
His decision to do that in that moment saved lives. I'm because there were too many people, let alone the zip ties and the noose for Mike Pence. There were plenty of people who were talking about kidnapping and killing members of the Congress and the Senate.
Four firearms were found in the building afterward.
Homemade napalm, pipe bombs. There was talk of the pipe bombs that were left at the DNC and RNC were used as distractive tactics to keep full police force away from the Capitol.
A cooler full of Molotov cocktails.
Yeah.
So that was all. And you talk about the stark images of the day. The one that really got me is there's a desk that they keep inside the room that is the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
It's not really near the door.
Yeah.
But I saw a picture of them. They had dragged it across to barricade the double doors at the back of the House of Representatives. Someone had busted the windows out anyway, and now there were policemen with their guns drawn, basically out the holes that had been busted in, holding the desk.
There was also one picture of a guy with his face just in the
hole.
opening of the hole. And I think, this has been said many times over the last week, but if it was a Black Lives Matter protest, this would have had a completely different outcome. Oh. And there is no way that anyone other than this crowd would have been able to stick their head through the open hole like that and not be shot immediately.
Yeah, let me tell you what didn't happen to that gentleman. He didn't get shot in the face.
No.
Had it been leftists, Antifa, there would have absolutely been a gunshot.
I don't know for sure one way or the other, but given the fact that only 13 people or so were arrested at the time, he probably walked out of there and went to an Applebee's without any concern.
Although maybe he didn't make his flight later on.
Yeah,
we'll get to that, I guess. But so basically, this moment of tension at the door, they got all the congressmen out. They got them sheltered in offices, and then essentially retreated out of the floor.
One other quick thing about that, but as they were being escorted out, a lot of them were being told to put on gas masks because of the tear gas that had been lit off in the rotunda. They were also being told to remove any identifying markers of themselves that they were congressmen, like little pins that say I'm a congressman.
Yeah. It lets them walk past security, so they don't have to go to security.
Right, but this also would identify them as members of Congress in case they walked past a group of people. The fact that what I didn't realize when I was watching it live, because it seemed like, everyone got out before it happened. Yeah. But I think when it played out on live TV, it seemed like there was a lot more time to get them out than there actually was when you look at how the event played out in real time. There was not many, the barricades to keep people in were outside of the mall, outside of the house. Yeah. And once people got inside, there wasn't anything keeping them from getting directly to the halls of.
Well, and that's the way the building's made.
Yeah.
It's keep them out, but once you're in, you should be able to walk around
for
the most part as much as you want.
And
they did. So once they sheltered in place with all the representatives, they walked. The people who forced their way inside were not only in the House of Representatives, not the just the gallery, but on the floor, in the well,
in
and
the
in
offices.
The Senate. Oh, sorry.
In the offices too.
Oh, then they moved their way into the cloakrooms and into the offices, and that's when you get the picture of the guy with his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk.
Yeah.
Which, listen, bro, I get it. I want to do that too.
I mean,
only though if she's not going to come back to that desk. And apparently somebody peed in one of her desk drawers, which, also, I would love to do that. But
I mean, let me say this. There's a part of me that would love to just sort of have free run of the Capitol for a while. I think there would be something very fascinating about that. Don't necessarily want to commit a crime doing it, but I mean, like
in the inevitable breakdown,
there's something that somebody who just walked in and didn't do anything and probably won't get charged with anything. I imagine had a fun time going through the Capitol.
Well, and that was the other thing too.
But they absolutely should not be.
People went. It was happening so long that people went in, did a little tour, and left. And then other people were like, "Oh, they're not even getting arrested." And
they can walk in and come out.
Yeah. So, but more than I guess, eventually the Capitol Police moved in. Eventually, they found the key to the riot gear door and got their riot gear out, and then basically took back the building. Wing by wing, and then the rotunda, forcing everybody into the rotunda and then out the door, and took the building back after 6 or 7 hours.
I mean, they effectively everyone left. The insurrection left.
Yeah.
It wasn't, the National Guard didn't show up until after everyone was basically out of there.
Yep.
One thing I will say, this is not a excuse of the police, but this is a very unusual situation with the Capitol.
Yeah.
Because, so with the Capitol, you have the Capitol Police.
Yes.
But the Capitol Police is underneath the Senate Sergeant of Arms and the House Sergeant of Arms.
Yes.
So that's 3 separate groups, police groups, effectively managing one building. And the second you walk off the steps of the Capitol and onto the grounds of the park police is now in charge of that area.
Yes.
And then as soon as you go beyond the park and into the rest of the DC, Metro DC Police is who's in charge.
Yes.
And Metro Police doesn't have any kind of jurisdiction over the park or the Capitol. Mm-hmm. Only the Capitol Police have it over the Capitol and the park. I'm just going to say this is the day that DC obviously made clear that it needs to be its own state, because there is no part of the reason. I mean, I guess people just assumed that if somebody tried to take the Capitol, they wouldn't be able to do it. That there wouldn't be enough people, or it wouldn't take, or whatever. There's literally
became a thought. If somebody's going to take the Capitol, we're at war, and then it's martial law. So the military has police power.
Yeah,
that's it.
I'm not saying that a lot of police officers should not be charged with what happened there, because there was clearly some foul play involved.
Yeah.
But I will say that for the rank and file who are there just doing their job, thinking that it's going to be a regular Wednesday. Well, I mean, everyone knew it wasn't going to be a regular Wednesday, but I'm saying people who showed up thinking that they were going to do their normal job as they always have. When you're not in charge of every step of the process between where they started marching and where they ended up, it's very hard for you to organize your troops in a way that allow you to effectively defend yourself either.
Well, listen, if you are part of the U.S. Capitol Police, you ask yourself in the morning, what's the deal? Oh, they're putting barricades up on the mall? All right, Park has it. So I don't have to worry about it today. Now, listen, protests are part of being a Capitol Police officer and a Park Police officer and a Metro DC police officer. So that's part of the job.
And there's no city in the world that deals with high-end police functions if something needs to be secured.
Yeah.
State of the Union. All of government is there.
Yeah. Everybody but one. The designated survivor. There
is hardly a more secure building anywhere in the country on the State of the Union night.
Yeah. Or most days. But the problem is, once you're inside, you're inside.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened. And I do, there's a lot of funny stuff that happened from this event. I want to go over the serious stuff first. First of all, Officer, I believe his name is Sicknick, right? Officer
I think
Sicknick,
so.
Unfortunately, was injured in physical altercations with the groups of protesters. There's a video.
Rioters.
What's that?
Rioters.
The rioters, yes. There was a video of someone kicking a extinguisher, which apparently may have been them kicking it over to someone, because the officer was beaten at one point with an extinguisher as he tried to flee. He got back to the Capitol Police offices, was taken to the hospital. He unfortunately died. And he is, I think,
The fourth?
the fourth.
Yeah.
Which tells you, one of them died in confronting a gunman on the Capitol grounds. But by the way, 40 feet from the front door.
Yeah.
There was a bombing that hit one of the guard booths around it.
Yeah.
And killed one. All of this always happens outside, and he died from injuries sustained on the stairs to the Senate.
Yeah.
Not really something you thought you would ever say. And the other death I want to mention didn't happen the day of, but I believe over the weekend it was announced that another officer had committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically pointed out the things that he saw and the events of the day as the reason for his suicide. And those two are what I will call the tragic losses of the day.
Yeah.
Now, let's get into the funnier losses of the day.
Yeah, and real quick, just before we move on. Because some people come into our... I feel like some people come into our episodes from time to time when big events happen and they don't necessarily hear things that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
We both have very strong opinions of the police.
Oh yeah, no, I fucking hate the fucking police. But
we also agree that there shouldn't be no police, and certainly in a situation like this, there should be police. I mean, like,
sure.
I mean, guarding important government buildings is part of just the base of what we expect here. And I'm not trying to, like,
if you
I don't want you to think that anything I've said negative about the police means that I think that something, that there's something wrong with any of these people who fought for the Capitol Police that day, because they did not, they're not out there doing the same things that the LAPD is doing that we're angry about.
Yes.
They're protecting the Capitol. If protecting LA was the job of the LAPD.
Wait, that is the job of the LAPD.
Well, I mean, protecting LA from like invading forces or something like that.
Well, no, I mean, if you strap on riot gear and shoot at me with tear gas, we are now in a battle. And,
yeah.
I don't really care what happens to you because you're an enemy combatant to me.
Yeah.
But generally, your day-to-day officers, I think I've said this, but yes.
Patrol officers who go.
Officers, I'm of the belief. I'm of, I suppose, the understanding that, yes, I think that there are good cops out there. My problem is that those good cops
are in a broken institution.
Yeah, too often they don't point out the bad cops, or when they do, they get fired for pointing them out. But nonetheless, it is tragic what happened to both of these officers, whether it was at their own hand or someone else's, and it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And if circumstances were such that the words of my book came true, that's different, because now again you're in riot gear and you're firing tear gas at me, and that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But your crazy right-wing nonsense about an election that 80 million people legally voted in is not the grounds for.
Oh, I mean, more than that, just voted for Joe Biden.
Oh yeah, I voted for
150 million people voted in the election.
Yeah.
And a majority of them voted for Biden. So,
but I do want to talk about the funny deaths.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: there's tragic death, and then there's death that we can laugh at. And I don't care who you are. If you try to steal a painting that is bolted into a wall and then accidentally tase yourself in the balls and give yourself a heart attack, that's funny. That is just fucking funny. If you try to parkour your way up a wall and then you fall off and land on a barricade that has been put against the wall as a ladder, and you die, that's just fucking funny. I don't care who you are.
I mean, if Jim Ross is narrating the whole thing, like, oh God,
and
he's broken in half.
Slightly less funny because I play Cold War pretty often. And flashbangs are frustrating as fuck. But if I walk into a room just seconds after the police have left the room, and at 3 doors, 3 guys throw in a flashbang, and then I have a stroke because the flashes give me a stroke, it's still funny as fuck. I don't give a fuck. So, fuck all of you guys, people who died for nonsense.
I mean, I'm still willing to hold. I'm willing to use their deaths as a means to prosecute other people.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean, but like I don't think that. I don't think we're gonna have a national moment of mourning for for Ball Taser Man.
They're
trying to steal trying to steal a portrait of Tip O'Neill.
Yeah.
But,
That's going to be in your obituary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tip O'Neill is probably one of the most famous members of the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you if we walked and asked 100 random people who Tip O'Neill was, not a single one would know.
No idea.
Maybe a couple people would say he was a senator or something.
I think he was in government. I remember seeing him on TV.
I think that's about as far as we get.
Yeah.
So remembrance of Tip O'Neill.
He's more famous now because this guy
tased himself.
Good Lord. But the only
Something funny though, just as an aside, this guy dies obviously on January 6th, and Tip O'Neill died on January 5th. So there's kind of a Jefferson lives kind of thing about this whole thing.
I like that. There was one other death. A woman who was trampled, and semi-tragic, but also play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah.
You're in a crowd full of people who are clearly out of their mind, and then tear gas canister gets thrown, and you got trampled. I would make the same argument, although much nicer, about people on the left. If you're going to be afraid when somebody throws tear gas and just stampede, don't be there.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, in Portland, I'm like listening to this podcast about what happened in Portland.
Yeah.
And they're like, one of the things is the first night when there were 15 of us, people ran. The 25th night when there were 4,000 of us, nobody ran.
Yeah.
You just once you get to a certain group size, you just got to know this is what's going to happen.
Right.
You're going to be fine. But as you said, they came unprepared with no plan, and then we got trampled.
Yeah.
Sorry about it.
And an awful criminal conspiracy.
Yes. So after the events of the day, not only the deaths were there, what happened afterwards, but there's been a lot of fallout.
I'm sorry, just one more.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just because one of the most notable deaths though was Ashley Babbitt,
Yes.
who was the one who was shot, and she was from San Diego. She was a former Marine or something like that, and very clearly from her social media history has been on QAnon for quite some time.
Yeah.
This is the part that this is one of the things that makes me wonder why anyone would want to join this club. If I felt so strongly about something that I was going to storm the Capitol with people,
Mm-hmm.
how disappointed would you be if this was on the other side? If this is some sort of left insurrection and you were a part of it,
yeah.
and you died, an officer shot you in a similar situation.
Mm-hmm.
How angry would you be, watching it from the afterlife when they're going like, "Oh, he wasn't a real progressive. He was just some Klans member who came in to take over. It's all part of Sheldon Alderson's big plan to take over the progressive left." How furious would you be up on your cloud?
Well, let me just say, afterlife aside, which
I mean, there's a part of of this story where you have to be aware of what's happening after your death too.
I don't storm the Capitol without my own firearm. That's one thing. Come prepared. Come prepared for the battle that you want to have.
Right.
Two, and I'm gonna. This is not, as far as I can tell, confirmed, but I read a story about it. And I'm gonna say it because I found it funny. That she may have yelled, "You're not gonna shoot me."
Yeah.
In a very Karen style, apparently, right before she got shot, which just for me is not something I would yell at a guy with a gun pointed at me. Don't yell, "You're not gonna fucking shoot me."
The fact that she was the only one who fell at the hands of a gun that day are unbelievable to me. But the fact that
I saw people moving together.
if it was the Taliban, like if a terrorist from the Taliban just like decided to splinter off and do his own thing, like I'm gonna blow up Madison Square Garden tonight. I got a plan. I'm gonna do it all by myself. And then after you did it, and after you had some level of success, like something happened.
Sure.
Something happened. So like you had some sort of level of success, and then all of a sudden on Al Jazeera, they're just like, that guy wasn't us. That was an American trying to false flag operation. This whole thing. Don't you dare lay that on Al Qaeda. That wasn't us.
So getting back to that part, because one, again, I'd bring a gun, I'd be prepared. I wouldn't probably run at the cop, which is probably what she did. I wouldn't scream, "You're not going to shoot me."
She tried to jump through a broken through window to get into the halls of Congress.
Yeah. So nonetheless, I wouldn't do any of those things without being prepared for them first. But in the event that it all happened, I would then be the most pissed off. Dying is one thing. It sucks. What are you going to do? I would be more pissed off. Like, you motherfuckers.
If you led a life and you were trying to stand for something, and at the end of it all, it was just like the complete opposite was pasted upon you.
Well, and here's the thing: is much like
Martin
her,
Luther King died today trying to get slavery back.
Much like her, you could go back and find stuff on social media, or if you talk to my family, that would make it seem that I believed things that were exactly the opposite of what I believe. And like, when he was in high school, he was very conservative. He would have voted for George Bush. He was very vocal about voting. Compassionate conservatism was what he was about. So I could be painted that way, and I'd be like, no. You are not going to do that about me. Here's the difference, though. It's hard for me to put myself in that position because I am sane, and everyone in QAnon that I can see is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And in fact, maybe she's looking down, being like, "This is okay." I would rather be painted as that because now that I have the universe
it helps
giving
me
knowledge, I can see how nuts this whole QAnon bullshit was.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's what she's saying.
Or
Turns out there's no children at the pizza parlor.
Or she shows up at the pearly gates and all of a sudden she's just like, "So Trump really won this whole thing." And like Peter's just like, "But what are you talking about?"
No.
Clearly he lost.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on because I have to fix the mic.
Yeah, that's fine. I will I will talk about
Stand for a second.
I will talk about the police or the lack thereof on the whole thing. One thing that particularly grinds my gears about this whole thing is that there were many people who knew that shit was going to go down in the OK Corral and were trying to prepare for it. The Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., had asked for the National Guard. Again, because she's the mayor of a city and not the governor of a state, she can only request that the executive branch allow her to have the National Guard, for which they said no.
Yes.
In addition, Larry Hogan in the state of Maryland said he would like to activate the Guard in preparation for things that were going to happen on Wednesday. He was also rebuffed. The governor of Virginia, I believe, also did the same, rebuffed as well.
Now,
during the storming of the Capitol, there were calls made by people in Capitol Police asking for assistance, and specifically the National Guard. It was rebuffed 6 times from what I heard from the now resigning chief of the Capitol Police.
I wanted to clarify, though, because the governor of Maryland could have activated the National Guard for an emergency in his own state without request. He doesn't have to ask. But essentially to say, we would like to lend assistance to a neighboring jurisdiction, then you do need, because the entire the Posse Comitatus Act, they're like, we don't want governors just activating National Guard willy-nilly. So if you're not going to use them in your state, you need to ask for permission. Yeah. So, but yes, rebuffed on his request to help a neighboring jurisdiction with it, despite the fact. So,
I mean, the fact that because it happened in D.C. specifically, and D.C. is not a state, allowed for a lot of things to happen that would not have happened if this happened in Baltimore, for instance, or any other state in the union. Oh, by the way,
Larry Hogan would have knocked that shit right out.
Oh man, Hogan is dying for a day to do some fucking. Oh man, he's got
Maryland State Police in riot gear.
You know, you got the we talked about how these people, how these pussy rioters don't have a good fucking plan coming in. Hogan's got a fucking plan. Oh, he wrote up a plan one night. He had a night alone. He's like, I'm gonna write up a plan to kill some fucking rioters.
It's
like
in version 3.
Just in a drawer somewhere. Like,
it's in version 3 because he wrote version 1. He gave it to the lawyer, and the lawyer was like, "Okay, kill has to be not."
You cannot use that word.
He was like, "All right, I'll edit it."
He gets the thing. The lawyer's like, Hogan's like looking over at him like,
"What? Yeah, right, good.
What do you think?" And it's just like, so it's good, but I got some notes. So yeah, the National Guard did not show up until after this whole fucking thing ended. And there's a lot of things that investigations will have to open up as far as the tick-tock of when things actually happened. But apparently, the National Guard didn't actually start to come out until Pence called them, which, again, I'm not gonna squabble because we got the Guard there eventually, but technically not Pence's job, and not supposed to be Pence's job. And
technically, Pence not allowed to do so.
yeah, not allowed to do so. But I certainly have questions about why DOD thought that there wasn't going to be any need for even troops on standby for this type of situation. And if I find out that some order was given to deny troops if the situation gets out of hand, then we got a whole nother thing that we got to deal with.
Well,
but
so I don't think that that's there. I think that they got an order they were awaiting an order from the commander-in-chief. They did not receive one.
yeah,
So they are not allowed to do anything.
Right.
Nasi comitatus. Now, I also think that order following from Pence is a little mini 25th Amendment where they're like, clearly we need to do something.
yeah.
Have we heard from anybody? Well, Mike Pence called. Good enough.
Yeah.
Let's activate him and
Executive,
get him going.
the representative of the executive. That's
Yep.
good enough for me. I'm sure he heard it from Trump.
Did he mention something about Trump? Yeah, he was like, God damn it, Trump.
Yeah.
We need the National Guard.
Why is he trying to fucking kill me?
That's an order. Let's get him. Let's get him out there. Yeah. So, well, it's going to be, listen, the Democratic Congress and the soon-to-be Democratic Senate is not going to let this go. You thought Benghazi was bad with the Republicans?
Yes.
This is our capital. This is not our embassy in another country. This is the Capitol building where they work.
Yeah, I brought this point up to you before, and I'd like to restate here. Sure, the Capitol in some ways is the people's house. We all have rights to this place, but we don't have rights like it's a timeshare that we all get a weekend in or something like that. This is a shared, like Mount Rushmore is not owned by anybody. It's owned by America. It's
Right.
like, we all have a part in it. We all pay taxes that help preserve it. It's something that we can all enjoy equally, but it doesn't belong to one person at will at any point in time. It's not somebody's weekend with Mount Rushmore. It's not somebody's weekend with the Capitol. This is the people's house, but certainly do not mistake it for your house. That is the thing I was gonna.
Yes, I will agree with that.
Yeah. So basically, what we have now is the all out from the fallout. So
there have been 20 arrests thus far, including Buffalo Man, who, another funny aspect of this story, apparently has not eaten since last Friday because the detention center where he's being held will not feed him all organic food.
Yeah.
So he's just going on a hunger strike. What do you think, Corey? Will his will break or will his belief break?
Oh, his will break.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Just looking at that guy, I'm like, nah, you're going to make it to like Wednesday maybe.
I just like to think of the guy like, some people get arrested and what they got arrested for is kind of, it's against the law, but it's kind of a bullshit thing. And, you say to the officer like, hey, listen, this is kind of bullshit. I'm going to get out of here. Can I get a Coke or something?
Yeah.
Then the cop might be like, you know what? Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I'll get you a Coke from the machine. When you do something that is really bad, you don't get the same kind of favor. Favors usually.
And here's the thing. I don't think any cop's going to get him an organic meal from Whole Foods in any event. A favor you get from a cop, and I can say from experience, is a Coke and a bologna sandwich.
Yeah.
Not egg salad from Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Organic.
I only eat local. How far did this egg salad travel?
Traveled about 2 feet as he takes it and throws it in the garbage can next to him. But yes, not only him, the gentleman who had his feet on the desk of Nancy Pelosi is under arrest. And there is an ongoing investigation, and apparently there are also warrants out now for people, although the arrests have not taken place, as well as continuing of identifying people. I joked at the beginning, but there is in fact one person who is now being sought because his ex-wife called in and said, oh yeah, I know him. Here's who he is. Here's where he lives. And apparently he hasn't been home since last Wednesday because he knows that people are going to... He also knows his wife probably gave him up.
Yeah.
So he's not going home.
Well, I'm just letting anybody I know this, that if I find a picture of you inside of the crowd of people, I will call the FBI because fuck you. Seriously, I'm not.
Well, listen, we already knew this about you, Corey. We've had this conversation on the podcast before. If you need to hide a body, you call me because I take that shit to my grave. If you want to get the cops called on you, call Corey. If his dad needed to hide a body, he would not help him hide a body.
I feel like I'd get caught if it was my dad. My dad would be more likely to have like a plot like these people, and I would be so worried about getting caught up in the riffraff of the.
Mr. Baker, just listen. If you ever need to dump a body, wait.
all of a sudden, I get a call from the cops. It's just like, yeah, so we have arrested your father, as you know. We have all this evidence against him, and we also have a 30-second phone call with you right at the time of the murder. So, yeah, we'd like to bring you in and have some questions. I'm just like, motherfucker. I told you to download Signal for a reason. Anyway,
more arrests coming though.
Yeah.
And again, funny moments. Anyone who's been identified, even if they weren't criminally charged,
yeah,
against Corey's wishes thus far, they've been placed on the no-fly list. Yeah. So a bunch of people found that they couldn't fly home from D.C. after the rally.
Oh, and the videos are the best. There is one in particular where the gentleman is on the ground and the police are trying to handcuff him, and he's yelling, "You're treating me like a fucking black person," which I thought was just like, if you needed to know the combination of racism and entitlements that was going on, that was a perfect encapsulation of how this gentleman felt like he should have been treated differently, even though his crime was way worse than whatever one he imagines the imaginary black person who gets arrested is.
To the entitled, equality seems like oppression. And that's, if there is a statement that is applicable to everyone who was at that rally.
Yeah. To
the entitled, equality seems like oppression. That gentleman and all of them. Just like, wait, why are you being so rough? Yep. But we marched this summer because an officer knelt on George Floyd's neck for 8.5 minutes.
Yeah.
You were being roughly handled as they put cuffs on you and then put you in the back of a cop car.
Also, I don't know if people know this. Sometimes I feel like I need to give this free legal advice for people who are being arrested. But if you're being arrested, you're being arrested.
Oh, it's too late.
There's no talking yourself out of this. As soon as they pull off the cuffs and say you're under arrest,
run. And then once they catch you, once you're down, you're not getting out of that.
But I'm saying, like, cuffs are on. Oh, now you're done. You might as well just walk peacefully with them to the car, because anything you do from this point on is just going to add on to whatever you've done. So,
with a caveat, if you are prepared, you can sew a handcuff key into the loop, your belt loop in the back, and then you'll be able to pop that thing out, uncuff the key. Handcuffs.
What I meant was, if there was a video I saw of like somebody getting dragged away at the baggage claim of an airport or something like that, and she's like, trying to like dislocate her shoulders and stuff like that. I'm like, girl, you are just take it, just walk away.
I just wanted to.
It's too late at this point if you're in the cuffs.
Based on your own rules, I just wanted to involve you in yet another crime for which you can be arrested.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate all the potential
escape.
Legal.
The escape, all these escapes that might happen now for people listening to this. But for everyone who was, let's call them leaders, because they're leaders of this insurrection, despite the fact that they weren't there.
Yeah.
In fact, some of them might have been sheltering in place. There are also going to be fallout for them. For the one who said, "Hey, let's go to the Capitol," and then went back to his bunker. There were immediately calls for the 25th Amendment to be implemented.
An impeachment.
Well, to the 25th, Mike Pence, with all his bravery of standing by the election, he's not gonna invoke the 25th.
Yeah.
And my first indication that he wasn't going to invoke the 25th is that cabinet members started resigning.
Yeah.
Because I imagine there was immediately a conversation about like
ones who potentially could vote Trump out were leaving.
Yes.
Suddenly.
And my guess is there was a talk and Pence said, "No, I'm absolutely not going to do that." And they were like, "All right, well, I'm not going to be part of this anymore." And they left.
Yeah.
They would have stayed if he'd said Monday we're going to have a discussion. But wait till
Chad, I need you for another week.
Yeah. Then I think they would have stayed. But as far as all of that, the guess is that 25th Amendment's not going to be implemented. So today,
I mean, the people who are leaving now are just as cowardly because, you know, like, yes, everyone was going to leave when it became unsustainable. The thing is, you have to see ahead that it will become unsustainable and leave before that point.
yeah, but we're gonna. I
Like Mick Mulvaney was chief of staff for a little while,
Yeah.
and then he left, and he was just like, I can't do this anymore. And he could have been out and still be part of polite conversation in society and stuff like that, but he decided to still be a part of the administration as an ambassador.
Yeah.
Until last week, and now I don't give a fuck what Mick Mulvaney has to say about it.
I like to just refer to these people as Mitches. There are Mitches, people who are complicit because although, yes, you came around to the right perspective, you're still stuck in way too long. And
You
don't
waited
get
until the last possible minute before you pulled the ripcord.
Yeah, you don't get credit for doing the right thing now. But Trump now is facing, as of this afternoon, new articles of impeachment were filed with 214 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives, which by my count is 30 short of the votes that they actually need to pass the articles of impeachment.
Yeah.
So looking pretty good
Yeah.
as far as that's concerned. They already have a majority, so it doesn't really matter. Impeachment's simple majority.
And the House Democrats will all be voting for impeachment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not. I can't foresee anybody not being a part of that.
I think they're also going to get some Republicans too, because again, the Mitches in the crowd will say like, "Listen, I know I've been supportive, but somebody put a gun through a door where I work. I'm not going to stand for this." Like, oh well, I'm glad now that you're personally affected.
I mean, I imagine the 120 members of the House who voted against the certification of the vote will not be voting to impeach the president, but that'll just make it easier to determine which ones need to take a long walk off a short pier.
Yeah, see, I mentioned in the opening that Corey has gotten a little more extreme. I know you guys were thinking we're going to hear about lists and gulags at some point. Not going to be from me today. Corey's got some thoughts about gulags, but before that, the impeachment will likely be voted on by Wednesday.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's going straight to a floor vote because Nancy Pelosi apparently has bigger balls than Mitch. Just going to throw it on the table and just see how everything shakes out. It will then be sent to the Senate where it will not die immediately, but it will be shoved in a drawer and nothing will be done.
Well, I mean, as it is right now, the Senate stands in recess.
Yes.
They are due to come back on the 19th.
Yes.
Usually when the Senate is in recess, something really big can bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine impeachment would be one of them, but I also imagine that Mitch doesn't want to be around until the 19th. So,
well, I mean, he's going to be the majority leader until the 19th, and he'd like to stay
relevant.
Yeah. And as soon as he comes back, then he has to actually do work, difficult work of not having an impeachment go through if that's what he wants to happen.
Right.
So here's the thing. If Mitch finds some advantage in having Trump impeached, they will be back on Friday to talk about the vote that's going to happen on Monday.
Yeah.
If there's no advantage to Mitch to have Trump be impeached, then they won't be back till the 19th. And then when Chuck Schumer, arguably, I guess, becomes the majority leader.
Yeah, I mean, he's already been voted as minority leader, right? So he would just automatically become majority leader with the... Or do they have to have a new vote?
No, I think that they deferred because they have new members coming in still.
Okay.
So,
the House was locked up, but the
Yes.
Senate was still in question.
Yeah, because Mark Kelly wasn't in until after...
A couple days ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
And now they have Ossoff and Warnock coming in too. So I think it's like, you're minority leader because you were, but we'll do a new vote after the new guys get here. But likely he'll be the minority leader or the majority leader. He'll take it out of whatever drawer or off whatever pile and be like, first order of business.
I mean,
impeachment.
I hate Chuck Schumer, but I will say this, I guess, in his defense, is that if there's anybody who knows the rules of the Senate, it's Chuck Schumer.
That's
on the
true.
Democratic side. I think if you were to make the same argument on the Republican side, you would say Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
Nobody knows the rules of the Senate better than Mitch McConnell.
We hate Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we hate him is because he does things like running out the back of the end zone, and you're like, what the fuck is that? You're like, well, there's a rule.
Isn't that against the rules?
214D subpart 1, and if we do that, it's bonus 6 points for us. It's a really old rule. And somebody's looking up like, motherfucker.
It's been in there the whole time.
And
Why have we never read this book?
I was going to say, I enjoy the quote that I believe is Bill Belichick, where it's not about winning or losing. It's about how many pages they add to the rule book.
Yeah.
If not him, it's something he said that he was quoting someone else.
Maybe.
But Mitch McConnell is Bill Belichick. We hate him, but you hate him because he knows all the rules and knows how to manipulate the thing to his advantage.
Yeah.
But Chuck Schumer is kind of the same thing. I also hate him. He also knows how to do the rules. We'll see how all of that shakes out, I guess.
Yeah. And, independently of that, in the Senate, they're talking about censure, which...
as an alternative to impeachment.
I would rather impeach him. And I let me make this claim to the Senate Republicans who are less inclined to do so. Just because, I guess most specifically, I'm speaking to people like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz right now. These people that you were trying to court with your voter fraud, and I'm going to fight for Trump and stop the steal and everything like that. You think that by standing up for Trump, you're going to get all his voters. The sad fact is that if in 2024 you do not impeach him, in 2024 he's going to run again, assuming that he's free and not in jail or dead or anything like that. If he's capable of running for president, he will run.
Barred from running for other federal crimes he's convicted of.
Yeah, if it's not him, then it'll be, Don Jr. or Ivanka who will try and get that. Whichever one is free and capable of running for president will take that mantle. The people who voted for Donald Trump might vote for Ted Cruz, but it's not like all of a sudden they're part of Ted Cruz's death cults now, as opposed to Donald Trump's. So your best case scenario for potentially maybe becoming president one day is you took a firm stand on the voter fraud. You fought hard even after the whole insurrection at the Capitol. You still believed in these people. But you know what? He needs to be impeached because he stepped over the line. He incited them to violence, and there were a lot of good people in there who weren't going to be violent, but they were incited, and now they were violent. So we can't have that in a president, and he can't run anymore. And now, who are you going to vote? You can't vote for Trump. He's not allowed to run anymore as a
felon.
A felon, yeah, or as being impeached.
Also, if you're Ted Cruz, do you want to run as a Republican candidate for president? Because there's a chance that there are two conservative parties by 2024.
Oh yeah, we were talking about the progressives and the center left like having to divide themselves because they were so opposite, and now it seems clearly that if we're going to get a third party, it's going to be the Republican Party separating from itself.
Who would have said, thank you, Joe Biden, for saving the Democratic Party. The big tent uniting under Joe Biden. But
AOC and Nancy Pelosi holding hands together like united fronts. Like
I never, 2 years ago, if you would have told me that, I would have slapped you in the face.
Yeah.
How dare you speak of AOC like that? My hero, my goddess. AOC.
The squad all voted for Nancy for House Speaker.
Yep, because they said we want a united front.
Well, because they said they want us to eat our young.
Yep.
So our best chance of doing this is me bitch slapping Nancy Pelosi behind closed doors. Like this is how I'll get things done. So
and I'm sure they're all lining up to be like, all right, Nancy, listen, we're gonna keep face, but 2 years from now, you're gonna step down.
Well, I mean, it's at the top of the Democratic congressional leadership is Nancy Pelosi, who's in her 80s, and Jim Clyburn, who's in his 80s, and fucking Steny Hoyer, who's in his 80s. So eventually the torch will have to be passed here.
Yeah, I just imagine the next 2 years is going to be a...
I think there was more of a, hey, let's keep with the stable hand right now, and in 2 years we'll have a discussion about how we move forward.
Well, and for these 2 years, why don't we have a couple of people following Steny around and figure out how to be a good whip?
Yeah.
So that we don't lose a guy with 40 years experience being a whip and replace him with like a pretty girl who can kind of get these other old perverts to get to vote for him.
Yeah, a whip is a very tough political position too. It takes a special type. It's like a place kicker in football. Like you can't just get any athletic person to do it. Like, you need a specialized athlete for that.
But the other thing about Ted Cruz is if you're going to run in 2024, you have to hope that you don't get kicked out of the Senate before then, because there are discussions about censuring congressmen and senators, especially the ones who spoke at the rally in D.C.
Yeah.
But everyone who is called essentially for insurrection. And there is a call for senators to be disbarred, Giuliani as well to be disbarred, and for senators to be put out of the Senate, which has only been done in the Civil War when senators from Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee showed up for the 1865 session of Congress after their states left the Union. And they were like, wait a second now, what's this? What's all this about? And by the way, not all of them were put out because some of them were abolitionists. And they were like, all right, you guys stay. You're the legitimate South Carolina senators. You're out.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, basically put them out. So, yes, they could put out senators. They could put out Congress members. And essentially, it causes a special election because the group says, we don't want you.
Yeah.
Go home. Now, the people of the state could send them back.
Right.
Ted Cruz barely won his election last time around.
Yeah.
So I guess we would see.
And I mean, like, Josh Hawley types, I just don't, he's so young. I mean, comparatively.
Yeah.
He's so young. And I feel like he thinks, like, oh, I'm a senator now. I can start making the path forward. Like, he's getting too ambitious for his own shoes. He thinks he's a good-looking conservative boy who's going to be able to do well in this world. But you have to understand that, like, the really great presidents or people who built the political legacy that it takes to become president, built upon solid foundations of George H.W. Bush was in the military, so there's a good foundation block. Then he worked in the CIA.
Yep.
He was the head of defense at one point, right? During Reagan, or
no.
Where was he was somewhere up
Cheney
there in the
was
cabinet.
defense. Yeah, but he was on the cabinet.
Yeah. And then vice president and then president. Like he built his path along the way.
Yep.
Josh Hawley just, is here. Who literally, a name I've heard of, but I wouldn't be able to point to you a picture of Josh Hawley 2 weeks ago. Now he's in the center of the stage and he's realizing that he wasn't prepared for this moment as much as he thought he would be.
Invading Moscow isn't about getting to Moscow. It's about getting to Moscow ready to fight a battle.
Yeah, and then winning.
Yes. And many people have learned over the years that you can invade Russia and you can get to Moscow, but if you haven't secured the base and the supply lines, you're just going to be retreating back the other way. So you have to have everything ready. And he popped up and he was like, ready to be the national face. And then realized, I am not ready to be the national face.
Yeah.
I have been outplayed by Ted Cruz, which, as embarrassing as dying over a Tip O'Neill picture, getting outplayed by Ted Cruz, even more embarrassing, Josh Hawley. I don't know how else I could put that. But
yeah. So one last point here before we get out. I want to talk about arrests and what should happen here. I mean, obviously, there will be many investigations that will go forward that will examine exactly what was known and who knew what and what parts were in play here and stuff like that. But my general rule here, this is what I'm basically coming together on, and I've softened my stance a little bit since my conversation with Rob earlier.
No more gulags, no more lists and gulags for everybody who walked onto the mall property.
No, I mean there's parts of this. Okay. So basically, what I'm thinking about is my same. I'm one person trying to storm the Capitol on July of 2009 or something like that. Some random old day where there wasn't a big insurrection, a whole bunch of people. It was just me trying to go in there and kill somebody, right? If I pass the gates, if I pass the barricade that says do not enter, at the moment that I've passed that barricade, I've violated federal law and can be arrested.
Yeah.
So I would say that under the pretense that if I was one person who did this and could get arrested, then that rule should apply for everybody else. So everybody who, from the outside of the Capitol, who broke through the barriers at the mall or at the park there to get to the Capitol, I'm immediately ready to charge them with breaking into a federally protected property that you don't have access to, which is the main charge that you'll see for a lot of these people going forward.
along with probably.
I might not have gotten the phrase. Yeah, I mean, like, the guy who's sitting at Pelosi's desk, he's going to get charged first, number one, with being in an unauthorized federal building without what I can't remember the exact charge name, but it's something like that.
Trespassing, but fancy federal language. For
Yeah. Which, by the way, already just carries a 10-year felony, federal felony. So that's fun. And then I'm willing to just add on things on top of that. So if you were a person who, went through the gate after they broke it down and then went into the Capitol and just walked around and enjoyed yourself, then you're just getting my 10-year unauthorized access to a federal facility. If you went in there and then you went to Nancy Pelosi's desk and broke it and stole some mail and stole a computer and did all that, then I'm going to add on the mail fraud and the damage to personal property over a value of blah, 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 and, larceny and anything else I can possibly add on top of. I would like there to be a warning to the people who showed up for the rally but didn't go to the Capitol. I would like them to know that while what they didn't do was illegal, that they should be very aware that they came perilously close to the wrong path in life. We have these moments where we hear it a lot in Baltimore. I grew up poor. I didn't have a way to make any money. My family was poor. We couldn't eat. I had the opportunity as to whether or not I wanted to join the gang and sell drugs and make money and support my family. But I decided to go this other route and, teach basketball to kids, and that led to this opportunity and blah, blah, blah. There's a point in the world where roads diverge, right? If you went to the rally in front of the White House, you said, I had a great day. Thank God the president got me all jazzed up. And then you went home. I would like to think that you took the road, the casual road. We talked about it with Charlottesville, too, at the time when it happened, where I was like, I could imagine a world where I was in Maryland or something like that, and they said, Unite the Right rally. I was like, I'm a Republican.
Especially back then. Yeah.
I'll show up.
Yeah.
And there's a world where I imagine that a perfectly reasonable person like me would show up and get there and think that I was going to be a part of some sort of conservative rally. And then all of a sudden I see, swastikas and Nazi flags and,
Jews,
tiki torch. Yeah.
Replace us.
Yeah. And all that. And then you have to say, like, you know what? Not for me. This is not what I imagined when I came down to Charlottesville, Virginia. I am going to go home. If you were one of those people who pulled up and said, oh shit, this isn't what I thought it was, and then left, let this be a lesson to you, a strong lesson to you.
As Arnold Schwarzenegger said
in
his speech.
Yeah. And
learn the lessons.
Yeah, and but anybody who went onto the grounds of the Capitol should be charged there and should be fully prosecuted as far as they can go. And I think that we should also examine the 14th Amendment for expelling members of Congress who voted for the vote, which includes Kevin McCarthy and Andy Harris and Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan and a whole bunch of these clowns. The senators who went along with it too. And basically anybody who we can find an investigation that had anything to do, that had any tangible ties to what was going on. So one of the things that came out after the fact was that a lot of conservative groups would do something to help people get to D.C. or to stay in D.C. or whatever the case was. Charlie Kirk, who we made fun of earlier, helped assemble 80 buses for people to get to D.C. His
wife did.
No, Clarence Thomas's wife did. Clarence Thomas's wife also put together a bunch of buses for people. How much Clarence Thomas knew about this or was involved financially in this decision is something I would very much like to know.
I'd like to get Biden a social SCOTUS seat. That'd be what I'd
Well, I mean, first of all, Breyer needs to fucking retire as of tomorrow. Like,
wait,
well,
no,
21st.
Not tomorrow.
Tomorrow of Joe Biden's presidency.
I was gonna say, because tomorrow Mitch is like, we're back in session. Let's get this bitch going.
Did somebody say vacant Supreme Court seat?
In fact, Mitch is at home in Kentucky right now, and he was like, I feel a disturbance.
I feel like somebody just awoke me somehow.
Did Breyer? Is Breyer retiring? Get the list. Get ready.
Does Amy Coney Barrett have a sister? Yeah. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind if Clarence Thomas was involved. And guess what? I would. I'm not gonna go so far as to say that they should be charged for accessory necessarily for blindly allowing it, but maybe every one of them should be investigated to find out what they knew, when they knew it, and what they were aware of. Because if Charlie Kirk was aware that one person who was there planned on storming the Capitol, like if he knew that was in the cards, like some people that he might be putting on this bus were later going to commit a federal crime, then he should be charged as an accessory to that crime.
I mean, he's likely a planner.
He brought them to the place where they were going to commit the crime. That is textbook accessory to a crime.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier, Trump got the crowd riled up, and you're looking for the guys who were pulling the trigger. Charlie Kirk is likely one of those guys who was waiting for the crowd to get riled up. So
yeah, and if you're a person who said, I'm going to drive a couple patriots down to D.C., and along the drive, one of them said, oh man, I can't wait to invade the Capitol later and shit on Pelosi's desk, and you said, you're not going to do that. I'm pulling over this car right now, and you could figure out another way to D.C., but rather said, haha, that'll be really funny. I can't wait until you do that. Take a video. Then I'm ready to charge you for accessory to a federal crime as well.
Now, what if you turn that video over to the FBI?
Listen, I'm willing to talk plea bargains. If somebody comes with some juicy information, I'm willing to cut a little bit of a deal. Mm-hmm. But the most important part to me is that every single one of these people who can be charged with a felony, as opposed to a misdemeanor, a felony is done so. Because I don't want any of these motherfuckers voting again. Ever. If you are so dumb and so jazzed up by the president that you're going to fucking storm Congress, you have lost the ability to vote, in my mind. You do not get to participate in the process anymore because you chose how you were going to participate in the process, and your thing was illegal. We've talked about this before. In the Constitution, you are afforded the right, if you want to overthrow the government, violently or not, left up to you. But you know what the only thing about it is? You have to fucking win. If you do not successfully overthrow the government, then you are felons. That's the sad. If you overthrow the government and we have a new government at the end of it, then you get to walk away free. But if you don't overthrow the government, then you go to jail. This is a very easy proposition. I don't know why it's so difficult.
I'm so torn. Because on the one hand, I'm a huge fan of Stalin and gulags and purges and lists. And what you're looking for here is for the left to essentially purge the right, gulag them up for the next few years, and and a huge expansion of the prison industrial complex, which I don't like so much. But I can imagine a camp somewhere where we'd send them.
Listen, I'd be perfectly fine having a bilateral conversation about maybe commuting some prison sentences of some people who had 3 strikes with a joint or something like that. Like, listen, I'm willing to make room. I think there's some people in prison right now who are in jail for way less than this. This is an insurrection to the basic tenets of democracy is a lot steeper of a crime than I had a joint once in 1983. And I feel like, you know what? You probably did your time, Mr. Man with the joint. Why don't you go along, live your life, go back to voting even if you can get it overturned in the court, if you can go back to California and say, hey, since I got arrested, you've made marijuana legal and I was in jail for the illegal marijuana that I had at the time. How about we throw out my sentence? If you can get it, go ahead. If you can get your voting rights restored, go ahead. But treason, sedition, these are not things that I'm willing to just casually say, oh, let boys be boys. It's way past that.
The parallels between what you're outlining and Stalin's purges are unbelievable. They're just intertwined. It's amazing. But that being said, I'm torn because I do enjoy Stalinist history and tankies and the purges. But on the other hand, and this is the argument I made to you earlier, that you are someone in the center looking at these people on the right and saying, like, let's throw the book at them.
Yeah.
And I am someone on the left looking at these people and saying, there, but for the grace of
God go I, for lack of a better term.
God go I. Because
I mean, it's the common parlance. We can just use it as
using it in the common parlance and not in reality. But I'm not going to go into the full argument, but I just want people to take the perspective briefly and just say, listen, if things had gone completely the opposite way, and let's say that Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders had said, had lost the election and had claimed voter fraud and was still saying voter fraud, I can see all of those people who have been organized and mobilized over the last year, thanks to the George Floyd protests and the BLM movement, that it would eventually lead us to the same place. And I can see myself being a part of that. So you say purge, and I say, but in a year and a half, that might be me. I don't know. And I look at it, and
we talk about roads, though. That's the thing, right? And there is certainly a road for leftist extremists to go down that would potentially create a similar situation to what we dealt with on Wednesday with right-leaning extremists.
Sure.
I can absolutely see a set of circumstances that happen sometime in the future, maybe not forever in the future, maybe in the next few years, which would open the same sort of thing up to extremists on the left. But what we were really talking about here, and specifically this situation, was that not only were these people extremists, so they were already down the road that far to begin with, there were all the things that could have potentially stopped them from journeying further down the road to treasonous acts. The guardrails were removed. People who should know better and should tell people honestly that these things are not what they appear to be. You know, if Ted Cruz honestly wanted to have a commission on voter integrity and, you know, like have Mitch pick 5 people and Pelosi pick 5 people and John Roberts pick 5 people and they'll have a little like investigation for 6 days, I understand the logic behind that. That's not an unreasonable thing to potentially say that you would want. But the problem is that it was after you had already talked about nonsense lies.
By the way,
it was lies upon lies upon lies that compounded into this thing that in normal circumstances could have been potentially a reasonable thing to ask for. But because there was so much distrust and just flat out untruths that happened in between, there's no way that these people were, you know, somebody put a brick on the tire and shifted the thing into drive and just let them go. Like this is not, you know, at any point during this process from election day up until Wednesday, cooler heads could have prevailed and said, hey, listen, I don't like it. And I think there's something fishy here. And I think that we might need to take a better look at these things so that we correct them in the future. But unfortunately, Joe Biden is going to be president. There's not really much I can do about it because the states have already certified. If you wanted to do something about it, you should have won a lawsuit prior to the states certifying. If Ted Cruz would have said that, I would have been like, yeah, sure, give him his stupid fucking... we had a voter fraud commission after Trump won.
Cruz
and that thing
proposed his commission the day after, the day after that Sunday that they called the... But he did. He waited until
he waited.
Day.
He waited until literally nothing could have changed from it.
Yeah.
Just so he could say that he was proposing it. It was so toothless at the moment that he was saying it that it didn't even reason to discuss.
So, do you think that George Washington was a wise president? Do you think he's one of the wiser, one of the better presidents?
Yes. I mean, there are certainly parts of Washington that his honor I always thought was very high.
Okay.
I don't necessarily agree with every decision he made.
Sure,
but I
he was
think
a
that
slave owner, so I mean,
right. I mean, you know, and he's a man of his time, if we will,
Yeah.
to say. But I mean, like, I think that above all else in his mind, he thought of honor and dignity and truthfulness, and he wanted to create a system that would last far beyond his years.
How do you think George Washington will respond to the events of last Wednesday?
I think George Washington would be fucking horrified by the events that happened.
Yes, but I mean more along the lines of you're calling for lists and prison sentences and gulags and the whole nine. How do you think he would reply?
I think he would reply like many people who were amongst the founding fathers, which is this is not by any means a perfect democracy. It's something that we strive for and that we constantly have to better ourselves in pursuit of.
Yep.
I never claimed that America was a perfect country or that we did things right or that there aren't clear and obvious things that could hypothetically be changed tomorrow that would make this world better, but absolutely will not be changed for years to come.
Do you think he backs your plan to charge every single person who was there and to maximize charges and to put people in jail for participating?
I mean, I think for him to properly understand the situation that happened, he would need more than just the information of the day in question. I think that.
No, let's say he's alive. He's alive.
Oh, he's been alive this whole
going
time,
on.
so he knew about the Civil War and he knew about all. Yeah,
he knows about all of it.
Yeah, I imagine Washington would be on my side. Honestly, there's a part of me that has thought of Washington in a modern day parlance, not word for word.
Yeah.
But there's always been a Colin Powell aspect of George Washington that I thought was sort of similar.
Yep.
Powell, you can disagree with him politically, but whenever he spoke, you could see that he had thought about what he had said a long time. And he thought about not only, what would happen if I did A, but what would happen if I did B or C or D, and what is the best route for America. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you get in the room, you say, I want A, Dick Cheney says, I want B, the two of you fight it out, the president says, I want C, you got to go with what the president said. Yeah. That's part of how this works. But, I always thought of him as an honorable person and a person who would, above all else, put the country and the democracy and the republic first, as opposed to any kind of party attribution that he had.
And he walks the walk when he talks the talk.
Yeah, and he's not a perfect person. He has flaws just like the rest of us. But
he stood before the UN and shook a bag of yellow cake.
Yeah, so. Not everything is reasonable, but I think that if you asked whether or not he was a honest and forthright person who was doing what he thought was best, I don't know a single person who wouldn't agree with that general tenet.
And funny bit of news, Colin Powell left the Republican Party this week.
Yeah.
So,
and Colin Powell was horrified about what happened too. Like I was watching him talk about it, and he, it looks like I think there's a lot of us who really care about. Part of the reason why I like government and why I like politics is because I really do care. I really do want things better for people. Where, again, democracy is the constant stage of trying to better yourself for a more perfect union. Mm-hmm. You're not, it's always going to be a work in progress. It's never going to be finished. There's always something else above the hill that we need to tackle and conquer together as a people. But there's no way a reasonable person can align themselves with what, this section of the Republican Party is doing. It's just antithetical to, like, literally from the time I was born till now, the Republican Party is a completely different thing than it was before. And that's not, the fact that it shifted so quickly and the Democratic Party didn't shift at all.
They did shift. Barry Goldwater.
Slightly, but I'm saying, like,
Barry Goldwater in 1964 is Joe Biden today. So the Republican became the Democrat.
I'm saying there were people on the extreme, like laughable left back in the 70s who were saying the same things that more center left progressive ish people are saying now. Like, legalizing of drugs was something that was brought up a lot in the 70s by people who were laughed at. Yes. Like, your Jerry Rubins and stuff like that, who were
also, there were leaders.
They were big jokes. Like
leaders of the Republican Party who fought Nazis, so they would never say things like counselor at Camp Auschwitz. Yeah. Because somebody would be like, I had a buddy who got fucking killed by Nazis. Don't take that fucking shirt off.
Yeah. What would John McCain say? Oh. Like, that's I know some Trump loony who hears us is going to say, like, fucking John McCain was a rhino and he never was a part of this party.
Oh, yeah.
He was a fucking part of the party. He was about as Republican as you get up until. And you know what? The only thing that made him so much better than almost any other Republican in the Senate for the time that he was there is that every once in a while he would say, you know what? I don't stand with my party on this one. Yep. I disagree. I don't think that they're right. I'm going to pay consequences for not following the party on this one, but I think it's right, and I'm going to vote this way.
He got blue-pilled, Corey. That's what happened.
Again, you can, McCain is not a perfect person. He has lots of faults, and we could get into it, but that is not, nobody was more honorable than John McCain in this sort of regard.
To circle back, the reason I asked about Washington is a funny thing about that. This exact situation popped up. 1787 in western Pennsylvania. Yeah. A man named Daniel Shays led not only an insurrection, but an absolute rebellion against the brand new government led by one George Washington.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard this name before somewhere.
Oh, yeah. So George Washington dispatched troops out to meet them because there were no police that he could muster to go out and meet them. And how do you think that Washington addressed the issue of Shays' rebellion? given your position that you think he would back you on the jailing of all the people.
I mean, I am sure you're going to give me a different response to that,
Yes.
but I think that while a reasonable point to bring up Shays as a counter to this argument, I think that things that happened at the burgeoning of the democracy are not quite the same as the things that are happening mid-stride of the democracy.
Well,
we are too far into this experiment to be at the point where the breaking across the bowels of what democracy was in the beginning is how you find its shape.
I agree with you. So,
I imagine Washington would be of the mind of Michelangelo, who said that I don't sculpt, I just take a big thing of marble and I skip away anything that is not the actual statue, and it comes to me. The democracy at that point was just a big slab of marble. They were all chipping away to try and find out what the democracy underneath looked like, and people who had antithetical views to what Washington or the government or the common view was at that time helped shape what that marble was. And I'm not gonna, you know what? Honestly, I'm kind of in a very esoteric, or like a very 1,000-yard view. I'm kind of happy that we had this moment in history, because I think that one day, long from this, because we're going to be living in a little bit of fear and uncertainty for a while. And I can't tell you that it's going to be like a couple weeks or a couple months or a couple years. I don't know. It's all up to the fate at this point. But I think that one day we will look back upon this as the moments that we had an ugly moment in America, but we grew stronger because of it. We came together in some sort of way. And I'm not saying like Biden is going to unite us or the next president is going to unite. It might take a while, and I'm acknowledging this. But I think that one day we might think of this awful chapter in America as the beginning of something that eventually took root that made us better. And that's the only hope I can ever have of America, because if I think that we're going to just keep doing this every 4 years with every election loss, then there's no point in really thinking that this democracy is meant to last the test of time, you know?
Well, two things. One, interesting hot take. Washington, mediocre president, only looks good based on the times. Good for you, Corey. Great hot take for you. The other thing is...
I thought we had a no hot take policy.
The other thing is... funny thing about that, if you look at the elections of 1820, 1824, 28, 30, what you're going to find is exactly what we're doing right now. This vacillation between control means policies change drastically. And that ended with, eventually, we got to settle this with guns.
Yeah.
And
I
keep saying that. Eventually, this leads, if we can't find a middle ground and we keep doing this vacillation, it leads to civil war. So
I mean, that's the problem. It either we continue ratcheting it up, and allowing the things that allowed it to fester to continue to live unencumbered, or we we just put an end to it. Like, that's Hitler could have been, and I know everyone makes comparison to Hitler with Trump and everything like that, and I don't like to do it either, because I get it. This is a completely different thing.
They're both fascists.
But Hitler could have been shut down way before Hitler became in power.
Yeah.
Hitler could have been irrelevant, and they chose not to do it. They said, we don't want to make an example out of him. Like, we don't want to, he wasn't a super popular guy before that when they were railroading him in the beginning, or when they had the opportunity to. And they could have snuffed that whole thing out, and they chose not to, and that allowed Hitler to not only rise, but to bring a lot of people with him. Like,
Funny thing about that, though, what did they do when he took his first action against government? They locked him up for 10 years. And he wrote a book, which then inspired him to the rest of the people to follow him.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying that
another great hot take from Corey. He wants to make the next Hitler by putting one of these crazy right-wing people in jail so he can write.
Well, they wouldn't be able to
Mein
run.
Kampf
They wouldn't be able to run again. Unless they just had a shadow government, like made a completely new government to run.
I mean, maybe he just writes a book and inspires people.
It's I don't think that they're gonna write a book, because Josh Hawley got dumped by his publisher, so he's not gonna have his opportunity to do Mein Kampf just yet. He's gonna have to put that out through a independent publisher somewhere.
Not sure any of these people could really write a comprehensive book. But I want to say this for anybody who's interested, because I think the point is interesting that you bring up Washington, or that I brought up Washington. That Shays Rebellion, there was a whole an actual rebellion, guns. There was gunfire exchange with federal troops. And when it was all settled, of course, federal troops won, and they pacified Western Pennsylvania. And Washington came in and said that essentially what you have said in a way, the spirit of America is one of rebellion, but you got to win.
Yeah.
If we had lost, the British would have hung all of us, but they wouldn't have hung all the troops. They would have hung the leaders and told the rest of us, learn your lesson and go home.
Yeah.
So what did he do? He sent home all of the regular troops. In fact, he sent them home with their guns because in Western Pennsylvania, you needed your gun.
Yeah.
And then he took Daniel Shays and the other 12 people who incited the thing, and he put them in jail. And
Yeah.
well, he put them on trial, and the people of Western Pennsylvania put them in jail. So essentially, this is my argument, that taking all 10,000 people or whatever that went into the Capitol and putting them in jail does nothing but create more disunity and create a reason for them to stand up, like Hitler and like the Nazis in the beginning, the National Socialists.
So I'm
Sending them home and saying, listen, I understand we have a country that's based on revolution, and you think you're continuing that revolution, but you're not. Here's why. Is a way that we calm things, and then taking people like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and putting them in jail.
This is the last point I'll make, and we've gone
We're
way
super
over.
long, yeah.
But obviously, this has been a very weird week, and we had to discuss a lot of intricate things here. But the last point I would like to make is that I'm not calling for these people to just be thrown in jail.
A trial.
I'm calling on them to be charged.
But
if
it does no good.
No, but I'm saying
it only makes them part of.
I'm saying if you charge
one crime, you go to jail. It's a school for scoundrels. You come out a gang member, and now you send one white guy to jail. How big is Aryan Nation going to be 5 years from now when these guys get out of jail?
I'm willing to listen to all possible opinions about what should be done with the people after we charge them. If compassionate courts across America want to look upon individual actions differently, then I will do so as well. If we all come together as a people and say, like, hey, listen, the only ones we should charge are these specific 500 people who fucking broke something or shattered a desk or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I can be moved by the common decision making process, but I'm saying, like, at the very least, I want charges. I want people to feel like they know that there is the axe is hanging over them, like this what you did is only legal and protected if you win. And history is written by the winners, and you were not the winner in this situation, and therefore you should not feel like you got off scot-free. The fact that I know people who fucking go out for a night, think that there's not going to be anything, it's just going to be a normal everyday day. And then all of a sudden you get caught up in something, and then you're running from the cops, and then you get arrested, and then you go to jail, and then you're sitting and holding because you can't pay your bail, and then you go to court and you argue to the judge, like, like, I have a family, I have all these things going on at home, I need to be there for them. He said, I've had enough of you dangerous criminal types, and he says, you're, no bail, and he's held until court. And it keeps getting delayed because the state wants to push it back a little bit longer. Mm. You can't afford an attorney. You only have a public defender, and they're fine with getting the extension because they already have so full of a caseload that they can't even handle it. And now it's been a year, and you haven't even seen the inside of a courtroom, sitting in jail on bail, right?
Khalif Browder, yes.
And eventually, your case gets heard, and you go in front of the judge, and he says, oh, this is all bullshit, and not guilty. And then you finally go home. The people who went into the Capitol and stormed the Capitol and broke the windows and destroyed the place and broke into offices and, did their little fucking LARPing on the Senate floor and everything like that. These people, for the most part, went home, slept in their bed. Today are probably still walking around, living their everyday lives, saying, like, oh, man, it was so fun last week when we fucking stormed the Capitol. And eventually the FBI will catch up to these people. The various states will root them out and will find the ones that they find are the most despicable, and they'll press charges and the whole thing will go. But, somebody is going to live the rest of their life and never get a call from the FBI.
Yeah.
And, there he was shitting in Pelosi's desk. And I just don't think that's to me that doesn't sit right, because I know way more people like the first one I mentioned in Baltimore, especially. I know way more people like the first one I mentioned.
Yeah.
Some person who thought that tomorrow they're just going to go back to work and have a normal day and don't realize that the rest of their life is now fucking this one charge they took once over some bullshit. And the fact that people got to sleep in their bed. We talked about police violence and how, like George Floyd doesn't get to go sleep in his bed. All the cops who killed him get to go home and sleep in their bed until they're charged 2.5 weeks later, or maybe not charged at all. And I don't want you to feel like you accomplished something, because you didn't. The people who went in there with the intent of causing chaos and to break our government in some sort of way are not the people who get to win in this whole thing. They're terrorists. They deserve to be treated like terrorists. And if some random mope just walked from the White House and went onto the the grounds of the Congress and walked up the stairs and walked through an open door and went into the dome, the rotunda, and had looked around and said like, "Oh wow, this is what the Capitol looks like," and then walked out. Yes, they violated the law. Do I think they should be talked about that thing? Yes. Should they probably be charged? Yes. But if a judge says, "Listen, have you learned something from this?" and he says, "Yes, I will never fucking do it again. I learned a very important lesson," then I'm willing to let bygones be bygones to a certain extent. But I don't want you to think that you just did nothing. That today was just that Wednesday the 6th was just any old day in your life because you actively decided that you wanted to be a part of an insurrection against the government for which you think is the shining city on the hill, the beacon above all else. And you talk about how important the Constitution is, and you don't know a fucking single thing about the Constitution. You think that free speech and the First Amendment is everything, and you don't realize that there are limits to what speech allows you to legally protect. I am allowed to say, certain things, but I'm allowed to say whatever I want, but it doesn't mean I'm shielded from consequences. Right. I'm legally protected from having really deranged opinions, but if they go into the stage where I might hurt other people, then those opinions aren't just things that I hold to myself. These are now things that could potentially hurt other people. And
I find it fascinating, and this is the last thing I'll say.
Yeah.
That you and not just you, a lot of people have been calling them terrorists all week.
Yeah.
And my concern is, about the cycle of terrorism.
Yeah.
Someone's a terrorist. For those of you who don't know, someone's a terrorist. We killed them. This only spawns more terrorists because we've now killed somebody who is the breadwinner or the patriarch of a family, and that person has children or cousins or brothers. They become terrorists because of it. If we start threatening people, then we become the government that they say that we are. And when we are that, it only spawns more people. And the 30,000 crazies that show up will spawn 300,000 crazies. And you want to have a civil war, that's how you get a civil war. But if we do what has Washington, as Lincoln, as all of our greatest presidents, and we hold them in great esteem because of the way they dealt with insurrections, if we do what they guided us to do, and instead say, we take the leadership and we punish them, but if you were just a follower, you go home, learn your lesson, then we avoid that and we avoid the inevitable consequences. And I can't believe that I am the voice of reason this
But
week.
to be able to do that, we all need to come together. And that means that people have to follow the basic tenets of fair play and the truth and honesty and telling people straight what's going on. Kevin McCarthy is doing us no favors by lying about what happened with the election. And he knows it's a lie, and he's doing it for his own benefit. And if he's not going to change his behavior, then he's going to have to face some sort of punishment for it. Right. Just the same as Andy Harris and Jim Jordan and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Tommy Tuberville, and the list goes on.
These are the names I'm talking about. Ted Cruz and Mike McCarthy. Yes, all of these people should be held accountable. But Joe Schmo, who walked into the rotunda, you threatened him with a trial, and now the 12 buddies of his who thought he was crazy for going to fucking D.C. are like, holy shit, he's right. Look at this government. They're overreaching, and now we have 13 instead of 1.
The problem is that with a lot of these people, you're not going to be able to convince to anybody who is willing to walk past the Rubicon into the protected area that they were not supposed to to walk on.
Yeah.
You know, any kind of jail time for a guy who sits on Pelosi's desk is going to be thought of as they're throwing the book at him and how dare they and stuff like that.
Right. That's
people,
why I'm saying give him any. Because, by the way...
What, and just let him fucking vote again? No.
Yeah, you're not going to change his mind no matter what you do. You put him in jail, he's still going to think the same thing. But the 10 guys who said you're crazy for going there, that's what I'm talking about.
If you charge one of them, then the whole group is going to think that this is a attack upon all their dignities. And I'm just not playing this game.
That's the point. Don't charge any of them. Send them home.
Absolutely
so
not.
You don't get their 10 friends. Charge the leadership because, by the way, they don't go charging across the Rubicon of that border without Trump and Trump Jr. and McCarthy and Cruz telling them to go.
I get it, but I'm saying
cut the head off.
There is no scenario where I don't imagine where I couldn't see 150 to 200 charges at the bare minimum of people who went so far beyond just what they thought was protected free speech when they charged the Capitol.
Yeah. I understand that. I understand what the law is. I'm saying let's be logical about it.
Right.
Because
otherwise, and I'm saying we're going to have to charge them regardless because they crossed the line way more than everybody else did. And I will not under any circumstance allow terrorist act to go unsustained.
The end result is that you and I are going to be two old men fighting a civil war. And I can't believe I'm saying it. Again, I can't believe I'm the voice of reason. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
I have a nephew I have to worry about living. But if you thought that was the biggest news of the week, of course, there's one other story that Corey wants to talk about, which is almost as equally as big as an insurrection. But that's inspiring. So, seriously, lightning round.
Yeah,
I hold you to a lightning round.
I'm keeping this to 30 seconds.
Go.
I'm glad that the Ravens are facing the Bills in the second round because I didn't want to face the Chiefs in the second round. And I am so glad that the Browns curb stomped the Steelers on Sunday night and then almost let them back in the game, but still won somehow. I'm happy for Browns fans. I don't think you have much luck here in the second round against Mahomes, but I'm rooting for you. I really hope you do. I really hope you beat him because
for the first time all season, you got two guys. Well, no, the second time, first being last week.
Yeah,
you have two guys cheering on the Browns, like let's go.
Yeah, because I would, obviously, if I could choose anybody to play in the AFC Championship game, it would be the Browns. Even though I do worry that if for whatever reason it did happen, if this circuitous events came together, where it was Browns and Ravens in the AFC Championship. This would probably be the time where the Browns suddenly found a way to right all the demons and beat us.
Yep.
So maybe I'm asking for too much. The fate is out there. I don't know how it will turn, but also more games on Nickelodeon. That was fun. Enjoyed that. I mean, like I wouldn't watch it every week, but I thought there was a part of me that wished that I had like a kid who was like Nickelodeon aged that I could show this to. I can tell
you, as somebody with a kid, Nickelodeon age, and by that I mean
me.
Yes. It was thoroughly enjoyable to watch somebody enjoy it so much. So, no, but they do their own way. I called it NFL for Dummies. And people took offense to that. I didn't mean like dummies. I meant like the books.
That was the book. Yeah,
the books that aren't really for dummies. It just means it explains the things that you need to understand.
It was just an easy way to say like, hey, you need to learn marketing. Here's everything you would need to know if you were a dummy and you didn't know anything about it. Like,
the way I was thinking about it was, every time somebody would turn to one of us and be like, "What just happened?" They were saying, "So here's what that was."
Yeah,
it's the perfect way to watch a game if you don't understand football.
Yeah.
Because every time you'd have a question to ask one of the guys who knows what it is, they were explaining it to you in the show. It's a good way. Now, I could do without the slime and, the two people who didn't know anything about football.
I do think there is a problem with trying to explain things in the vernacular of the sport already.
Yeah.
Like, there's something... Like, if I said, like, can you explain a rocket launch to me? And then you started saying, like, okay, so when the Circuitian pressure gets to this level is when the rocket is really ready to take off and get into the atmosphere. You're already using words that I don't understand. So now I have to stop you. And I'm just like, like, what's that thing? So, like, there were a couple things where they were, like, explaining, like, what a false start was or, like, what offsides was, and it's just
Yeah.
like there's an imaginary line that is the line of scrimmage, and if somebody on the other team obstructs the general area of the, like, it was spoken kind of in legalese too. Like, I think there might have been, if I could make any critique, I would say that maybe there's a way that you could even dumb down the explanation of the rules to people, because if you have never seen football, like if you were, you know, I just had some buddy from the Congo here who wanted to watch the football game with me.
Talking a lot of shit about Africa this week too. Look at you. So many hot takes.
I would definitely probably still have to explain things that were going on here, you know, like.
Well, and that's what I said. The kid on the field and the kid in the stands, it's Nick. That's why they were there.
Yeah.
But I'll keep Burleson. I think he was funny and I liked him.
Yeah.
But having somebody who's just like a layman and being like, all right, so what you mean is there's a line. If you cross the line too early, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was sort of like there was the Gabby, the girl who was in the group too. Yeah. Like, I thought she was good as far as like being entertaining and fun and everything like that. There were a couple times where she would ask a question that seemed like it wasn't necessarily the most important question to be asked, but, you know, like kids too. Like, maybe they got their questions from like what kids wanted to know.
I think so.
Because like at one point she was just like, so what happens if you have to go to the bathroom while you're out there? You're wearing all those pads. I'm just like, this isn't really, I mean, like, he's probably, you know, like the reality is like, you go before the game, you go at halftime. You're pretty good. Like,
I'm a grown man.
Yeah, grown men can hold it for an hour and a half. Yeah. Like,
but no, I bet you they had Twitter and they were taking.
Yeah.
Twitter,
I'm sure, but I'm saying, like, you know, there was a part of it that felt like maybe you were going a little too low to try and to get people in, but at the same time, when you were explaining like rules, like you were using it in, like when they trying to explain touchdowns and stuff like that, like, you know, there's so many little things that could make something not a touchdown. Like, you caught the ball in the end zone, but you need to have 2 feet inbound. Like, some of this is like, how can I explain it to you in as briefly as possible without saying that there's like also some things that might keep this from being a catch, you know, like.
Like I said, I think they did a good job. If you get again, I don't think but Nick is going to focus at kids, and that's why it was so fun. Focus it at people. Maybe it's just CBS or somebody needs to say, we're going to put this up. If you've never watched football, this is your game.
Understand, this is the future of where I imagine a lot of sports are going to go. And I think that sooner rather than later, we already have it with the Prime. If you ever watch a game on Prime, you could either listen to the Fox commentary with Troy and Joe Buck, or you can listen to, there's like a stats version where they get like really heavy into the numbers. There's also, I don't know if it's the same group, but I know it was Andrea Kramer and Hannah Storm were doing commentary for a while. I imagine that at one point the NFL is just going to be like, hey, you have the NFL app. This is where you pay $2,000 a year to get all the NFL games. And if you click on the Ravens game, you want to watch the Ravens game, here is a selection of 6 different commentaries that you could listen to. Because as they're watching the game, the Anthem guys are going to be doing a play-by-play. So you could listen to that one, or you could listen to, you know, the Section 336 guys, or any of the, you know, go down the list of like, you know, or maybe the 105.7 the guys will be doing it, or like whatever the case may be. And then, you know, you just put the standard, like, we don't necessarily monitor what they're saying, and you listen at your own, you know, when you're listening to like Chad Dukes, like.
Let me give you a preview. Someone keys into the game, the Anthem guys, and the Ravens are on the 20 looking to score, and they're about to hike the ball, and you hit the button and guillotine. This is why I'm saying you need to have. What the fuck does this have to do with the games? Like, oh, they're off topic. Who knows? But I would just like to do it because we'd have 3 hours to talk instead of our usual. You know, we're limited completely to an hour. We have to be with.
Yeah. Well, if you want to listen to podcasts that I guarantee are shorter than this on a normal basis. You know where you go?
Where's that?
OhTheAnthem.com. CordoTheAnthem.com. Or The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. You can find more of the podcast on all the podcatchers that you listen to us on. The easiest way to find it, anchor.fm/OhTheAnthem. And then as for me, you can find me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoreyBakerFilm, and at LegendCB5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Still working on things, and it was a rough week. I was a little bit worried about democracy falling. I didn't get a lot of work done. So sue me.
And of course, we record these episodes every single Monday, so you can join us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and Twitch. where we're at O the Anthem, and you can find us on there and join along with us. We have a Discord channel. You can join us in there. I just realized I haven't checked the Discord the entire time. Nobody commented. Good. Probably 'cause we went
Twitch is
2
no
hours.
more, by the way.
And so you could join us there and join in on our conversations, even our pre-show prep. You can talk to us about what topics we should talk about. If you're looking for more of me, it's at Robert and Cheek on all your social networks. You can go to robertandcheek.com when you want more information. I'm on social media. I'm not really on social media. I just check it and update my story on Instagram. Honestly, that's all I do. But you can find all the important stuff at the website, including links to the books. Wait, let me get to the 2 shots that are available on Amazon.
And listen, I got to talk. I mean, this one, it's fine. Not really of the times. Not really something you need to know right now.
Sure, yeah.
Get back to it later. It's
that's the one I talked about last week with the future. The guy from the future comes back.
you should have already read it in the last
yeah.
week. But the ones that you specifically want to be looking forward are these 2. The Movement series, which will illuminate a lot of how some of these people might have been thinking.
Yeah. It's the crazy left version of what you just saw on TV. Again, the Insurrection is the one that opens with we're in Arlington Cemetery invading the Capitol.
Yeah.
And Insurgency is, hey, the crazy right-wing people, the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
The crazy right-wing people have their own striking back.
Their own resistance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm a prophet. I'm just going to say.
Just saying, if you're looking for some light reading, you want to take your mind off the events in Washington.
It's there. Yeah, it's available.
All right. Well, I think we've done good here today.
We've done something. I don't know if it's good, but as always, you're listening to the O the Anthem podcast, part of the O the Anthem digital network. For Corey, I always fuck that up. This is Rob. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
All right. Release the hounds.
What? Release the hounds?
The one hound.
Oh, yes, the baby tyrant. Or as we call him, it's Producer Brooks.
Hi, baby.
Yeah. All right, you want to show him? Ah, there he is. Oh, look how cute he is.
Kisses.
Oh, he misses Dad. All right, bye, everybody.